Mr. Kell, there's a Mona Lisa in the art room that looks suspiciously like you.
Springs BOE. We're live and being recorded. You may begin.
Great, LTV. Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening. Prior to this meeting, we were in executive session where we were going over contract negotiations. But now it is time to call the workshop to order. It's 7:05. Deb, would you do roll call, please?
Yes, Barbara Dayton.
Here.
Eric Hutchinson.
Here.
Pat Rayback. Peter Sarah. And Emily Field is absent.
And if we could all rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we have two items on our agenda for this evening. We have our budget presentation number 2. Winter and early spring, fun budget season. And then we will have a presentation on DASA and how bullying behavior is dealt with in the school. But let's start with the
Budget presentation.
Budget presentation. Yes, please.
Consistent with our conversation, I'm going to ask Steve to just review the comptroller's report that was in some of the local papers, so that the community understands what those 2 designations were.
Sure. Thanks.
Again, just a quick summary of what the state controls report is. So we recently designated it as successful to stress. Within the report, there's 2 measurements. There's an environmental measurement to measure district staffing, changes in property values, budget support, and student demographics. And the second part is the financial measurement, which measures the district's overall financial position, including unappropriated fund balance, operational deficit, cash position, and short-term debt. Our environmental stress measurement, we scored a 40. We received 15 points for having a 23% teacher turnover in 2022. We received 10 points for our budget vote between 60 and 65%. We were 64.7 for the 23-24 school year. And we received 15% for in 2022. We had an ELL of percentage of 28%. And yeah, we received a 40. Anything below 29.9 points for that section, it had no designation. So we received the section above, which is susceptible to stress for the environmental section.
What does that exactly mean, Steve?
It just basically means that according to their grid, that they do every district in the state as a point scale, and we received for this section 40 points. So it more or less puts on a list that say, hey, we're susceptible to stress. And again, it's more of a guideline from them to tell us that these are the lower points according to our grid, that you are 40, which is susceptible to stress.
Right. So what is the practical result of that? Is somebody like watching us, or is somebody going to be giving us recommendations? Are they going to be saying, you need to try to change this or the other thing, which, some of that we cannot change, or is it?
Some of this was in your forecasting. Remember, we have been doing that since I've been here, forecasting 5 years out, and Mike has indicated that there are stress factors that eventually are going to catch up to us, and this is one of those.
Sure, but as far as being in that position, what does that mean to everyday financial dealings here at the school?
It could affect our overall rating.
Right.
Right now we have double A rating, and and it helps us with our borrowing.
Right.
So that could impact. Somebody looks at that.
Okay.
On the positive side, would it open you up to grant funding or any other sources of funding?
Not that I know of.
Oh, nice thought. That would be a
nice thought.
yes. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but yeah.
So there is 2 parts to it. So that was the environmental part, and the financial part, we scored 25. And all 25 points is because our fund balance is below 1%. We got a 0.28% for the 22-23, 0.82% unassigned fund balance for the 22-23 school year. And for that section, anything below 24.9 is no designation. So we were basically the lowest category you could get
Right.
to have a designation.
So what is the recommended fund balance to have? What percentage?
For here, according to this grid, anything below 1% gets you designated.
Right, and what is sort of, what are 25, to bring us that, say, 100?
And you want to lower score.
That's the lowest one, but back the other way.
Yeah, so you want to lower, so
Right.
anything below 24.9, we got 25, has no designation. We that's the first designation you can get. Right.
So what's the optimal amount of unassigned fund balance that we should have? Is it 4% still, or is it?
So this grid,
Right.
anything below 1, you get 25 points, which makes you susceptible to stress.
Right, so we're below 1% of unassigned, right, yeah.
So if we had 4%, what would that put us on that grid?
For this, there'd be no designation.
We would not have that designation yet, so, right, so,
Anything below 1 gives you 25 points. According to this grid, 25 points puts you as susceptible to stress.
So what you're looking at, this is about thresholds. It's not necessarily about an ideal number that represents fiscal health for the school.
but it sounds like we want at least 1%.
For this, according to this state,
For the, right,
guidance, yes, you want to leave 1%.
Yeah.
0.2.
right, okay.
That's one of those things where it's sort of like a dynamic balance, because if you have too much fund balance, it's, you get your wrist slapped and it can be a bad thing. And if you obviously don't have enough and you actually come in a time of need, then it can be really difficult. So there's sort of like, you always have to float between excess and,
I think it's more for state guidance to say that, you want, according to this guidance, you want 1%, at least 1%.
So I have a question, and I don't really know the answer, maybe for the next time is, if we're at 0.28%, what is the dollar value to 1% that we need to keep that fund balance to our budget? Is it, if we take them to 33 million, how much money do they want to see in the fund balance at 1% to get us off the grid?
It's 1% of our gross expenditures, which is basically that much. So right now we get roughly at 350,000. We have $35.4 million budget, so 354
Okay.
for this year. Yeah, according to this designation, they want, according to this, they want 1%.
Right, so nothing punitive is happening to us.
No,
because
it's
this
more of a-
designation, it's just like an awareness, so we should be aware that, yeah, actually, we do need more in our unassigned fund balance. I mean, we have been using a lot of that in the last couple of years and trying to balance the budget, especially with the, what we were watching going on during COVID, yes, so we need to.
I think of it as more of a state telling you have less than 1%, if something happens, your expend your budget for unexpected expenditures isn't very large.
Right,
So it's
exactly.
more telling you, hey, you guys should you should try that 1%, not.
More mindful of rates.
Back to the environmental one, the staff retention, 23%, how about nationwide? Well, statewide, townwide, and nationwide,
I'll have to look into that, I don't have it off the top of my head.
is it something that's trending to all the school districts? Is it,
The list did grow this year. If you're talking about who made the list this year, it grew from last year substantially, because remember, the ESSA funds are also finishing. So that was an infusion of money that a lot of districts had. So you didn't see districts with the designation the last couple of years. But now, without that, you're gonna see it. You can't be reliant on your savings.
Because 23% is a large amount. I mean, if you have 110 employees, that's 23 employees. And that's large, and look at that, I just don't understand how they got to it, Because sometimes some staff is done because of, not here, we haven't done it luckily, is just curriculum's not there, or you're changing things around, so I'm not higher. You're not filling positions that don't no longer needed. The state put that into play, and they just look at the numbers, how many people leave it.
We don't know where that number came from. Again, these formulas that the state use is hard to determine, but Steve and I questioned that today. That's in 1 year.
Right, and can we get more information? Can we get more information on that? The more information
We
we
can
get?
try to find out.
Because it just give me fact, statistical numbers, but doesn't give me no backbone on it.
We can try to find out. You good? Okay. You're gonna run the PowerPoint for me? So budget workshop number 2 is facilities, health and safety, and transportation. I'm just gonna review again our mission statement in the slide. That we're committed to providing a safe environment and enriched educational experience for all our students with an emphasis on academics, physical, social, and emotional growth. We'll prepare our students to be lifelong learners, to respect cultural diversity, to embody positive character traits, and to be responsible and caring citizens. Our principal, Mr. Kelp, has a vision for the school. He's put it all over the building. He's met with staff and met with our students. The vision was what must we do to accomplish our purpose, work collaboratively and empower our students, our values. How must we behave to achieve our mission, soar with the offspring, service, optimism, accountability, and respect. These were our goals for 23-24, improve the school culture and student achievement, improve governance and communication, engage in strategic planning for fiscal responsibility and facilities. These are the things that we want to maintain: a robust K-3 educational programs, our class sizes not to exceed 25, staffing, of course, to meet our mandates and our requirements, instructional technology, where one-to-one devices and testing now is going to be on devices as well, extracurricular programs, we know how important they are to our students, school safety, adequate custodial maintenance, fully staffed teacher assistants, clerical staff, bus drivers, bus monitors. The East End is becoming harder and harder to retain and to recruit. Permanent substitute teachers, quality professional development, curriculum work, comprehensive social and emotional programs, and restorative practices. These are all things that we hope this budget can support. Let's go into school safety. When I arrived here in 2017, we did not have security guards. We had wall monitors and the environment around us, not in Springs, but around the United States, was increasingly showing that schools were targeted. And districts were not only hiring security guards, but they were even hiring armed guards. So we have had between 4 and 5 security guards at any time on our rolls. We did lose some security guards in nearby districts earlier this year. 2 of our 5 are retired police officers. 2 are full-time, 7:30 to 3:30. 2 are part-time, they share a week. They also cover when a guard is out there. All of our guards, by the way, are hourly, and none of them get health insurance. They work less than 30 hours a week. We have 1 guard that's usually 11 to 7. He is our lead guard, and he makes sure that we're covered in case of anybody's absences. When the warm weather comes into play, we have a retired police officer that's local, and she will come by to see that permits are in place for those using our fields. When we build these fields, we build them with the community in mind, but also for the same kind of respect to take care of the facilities. We've done a lot in this area. In fact, if you speak to Homeland Security, who did a visit back in March of 2023, they were quite impressed that Springs has a lot in place. Our building emergency response plan was written and submitted on time. A little bit of a learning curve for Mr. Kelp, but he worked with the team and got that done. We did an active shooter presentation to all staff. That's a yearly requirement. Additional cameras, a total of 44 active cameras. Tanner over here is very good at working with Kevin Jones and running wires themselves and putting up these cameras and getting them all to function properly. Digital radios to speak directly to dispatch, 7 have been received, 20 are on order. All of this was provided with ESSA and Red Deal Bullet Aid funding. Lockdown lights, you'll see them in the hallways, they're not yet configured. but they will let somebody know who maybe does not hear the announcement, they have, their radio turned down, that there is a lockdown in progress. Cybersecurity. If you remember, we talked about 3 different types of plans for cybersecurity for this district. After Suffolk County was hacked, we went with the best cybersecurity that we could have. You're either going to pay for it up front, or you're going to pay for it if data of students and staff are compromised. There's no way around it. We also are 90% in compliance with data privacy, which the state has come out with some guidance on there. We've been working closely with BOCES, just a few more things to put in place, and that will be a goal that I have, is to be in full compliance by the end of the year. Current certificate of occupancies for all our buildings, that also has a strict timeline, and we were in compliance. The cybersecurity insurance was purchased this year. It's not a lot of money, but we felt it was necessary to get the additional insurance just in case something happened. The other thing I want to note here is we do use an outside company for technology, and some have talked about you should hire our own, have them on staff. By using Artlist, that's the name of the company that Tanner is employed by, if something should go down here, you not only have Tanner Stedman, but you have the engineers that work for Artlist behind the scenes. And you need that, because by the time you hire a company, things could really go down very quickly, where they can shut things down and they can look on the back end. In fact, there are some programs that we subscribed to just recently, really helped us when a student put something in his email looking for help. And that went to Mr. Kelp, it went to Mrs. Rogers, it went to Mr. Stedman, and to myself, and to the police department. So it's a software that you purchase and you pay for that. But it's worth every penny to be able to be on top of that when something like that happens. So that's just some of our security and safety measures that we've completed. And I know you're working on a button for outside on the field as well. That would be like a hot phone. It would only call out to the police department. So we need to run some wires for that, but we feel that being where we're located and cell service not working sometimes, we need to have that out on the field. Transportation, and we'll knock on wood, it's been a much better year. We have 1 head bus driver, 12 months, 10 full-time drivers, 10 months, 1 part-time driver, and a driver full-time currently is unfilled. That's currently in our budget. Monitors, we have 2 special education monitors on our minibus, and we have 2 floating monitors on our big buses, unfilled due to teacher assistant vacancies. Just recently, we have hired and trained bus monitors. Bus monitors have to be trained by our transportation supervisors in order to ride the bus. They have to also have first aid experience as well.
When you're saying unfilled due to teacher assistant vacancies, do you mean anyone who's available to do that is actually being used as in the TA position?
Well, the TAs usually fill those positions for extra compensation.
Right.
So when you have TAs, a shortage of TAs, which we still have, even though we raised the incoming salary, you then turn to your substitutes. And that makes it a little difficult in that they're substitutes. They're not here every day, but they are willing to do the extra hours and be compensated for those extra hours. So that's what we've done. In the absence of our teacher assistants, we have asked our substitutes to help us out, and many of them have been trained and are kind of splitting the positions, who can't come in on Mondays, but we'll do Tuesday through Thursday, and then somebody else will do Fridays. So.
And with the unfilled driver position, are we feeling a lack of a driver? Are we okay without that position? Does it need to be filled?
That position is really the position that we want to swing for the late buses. So right now you're incurring costs for overtime.
Right.
We're fully staffed during the day, but now those drivers on a rotating basis are asked to cover any late trips or sports buses.
Are we advertising for that?
We're actively recruiting for that position as well as substitutes, but it's been hard. That's when I ask the parents for their patience if the driver wakes up in the morning, doesn't feel good. They're not in an office. They're not close to a bathroom. They need to call out, we don't want somebody driving a bus who doesn't feel well in the morning. And they try to do it as early as possible. Usually one of us is in the office by 6:30 to get those messages out.
This year was tough, a lot of people would say. I know.
This actually had as much as, last year we had, I think, 4 drivers out with COVID at the same time, so, yeah. So, we appreciate our drivers, their jobs are really, really hard.
I know East Hampton's got a bus drivers with that big billboard they got
Yeah.
all the town.
Yeah, and Montauk.
And Montauk, yeah, so.
But again, we appreciate the fact that, you know, we feel our drivers, their salaries are competitive with our neighbors. They're happy here. Remember, your bus drivers are full-time and they get benefits. They help us with lunch and recess duty. They know our kids, and that to me is really, really important. And the administrators have all ridden the buses as needed when necessary. There are also cameras on our buses.
It must be hard, you guys, to run the bus and do your other duties, huh?
Yes,
They
it
take
is.
you out there.
But you know what? It's important to
Oh, yeah.
take
Yeah, it's very
to take
important.
those rides. The cameras on the buses are very different than the cameras in our buildings in that they're saved to a drive on the bus. So Mr. Stedman has to go out to the bus and actually remove the drive, upload the video that we want. There are videos in the back of the bus and the front of the bus. And remember, we have to stop on cameras as well for cars that pass our buses.
All 3 are removable drive storage.
The 2 in the front and the back are removable. The other one, the stop on, goes directly to the company
Okay, that's
and
on the
then sends
server.
it to East Hampton Town.
Do we know if there've been any infractions from that since we put them on?
Oh, yes, we received a check,
Oh,
several.
wow.
Yeah, so what happens is the money went to the company first, and anything profit-wise from that now goes to the county, and then the county writes a check to not only the school district, but to the police department. Because they're part of ticketing. So
How often is that happening? Is that like a week?
quarterly, you know?
No, I mean, in terms of people like blowing through the sign on the bus, is that like a weekly occurrence?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
You should have a tally on that, you know, like, this week we got 10, and try to get it there.
Thank goodness we don't have a double highway here, but there's actually a group trying to petition in William Floyd Parkway for the community. Double highways, you still are required.
You went to medium, right?
You're still required to stop, and I get that you're scared because the guy behind you may not. The advice is pull over on the side of the road, pull over on the medium. If you find yourself on a double highway with a bus,
You have to stop.
you have to stop.
I got a quick question for you. It has to do with the cell service. I don't know if anybody's noticed here, outside the school, well, I know inside the school, we have the Wi-Fi for the cell service.
Yeah.
With the new tower, the Girl Scout camp, I don't know if they're both towers working, I know one company is working. We should increase the cell service outside the building.
Anybody notice?
I mean, I asked Tyler that yesterday. I was thinking about, you might have heard, you know, if you work like walking over to the Y, we have Wi-Fi out there, you know. Be interested to see, like, in the street out here, do we have cell service
Well,
now?
we always got cell service in the street. That's where I used to be when we had somebody go down in the building. I'd have to go outside before we had phones.
Pat, I'll call you when we leave
It's
here.
happened, right? I know you, T-Mobile is my phone, I know I don't have it yet.
We also have phones in every classroom that call out and can call a lockdown. And they'll be hooked up to that light.
I'm just curious to see if we're starting to get cell service, like the teachers walking down the bonds, and one general store. But if you're walking down the lane without a radio, or, you know, just be
It
curious.
was really the field. We'd have to go out to
The
the field to
field.
see if service is better.
Yeah, I'm just curious to see. If you hear anything, let me know.
We'll
I don't mind it not working.
we'll check it out for you.
Just a quick comment on the buses. I'm not sure what the protocol is, but with the frequency of the violations going past the sign, is it where the bus stops and before that student is released from the bus, is there a certain amount of time that stop sign is out before a student, that door opens?
They put it out as soon as they start to slow down, that sign comes out.
And then so that sign is gonna be out for at least 5 to 10 seconds before a student goes rushing out to allow cars.
Correct. And in the morning, they're supposed to wait.
whatever the time is.
whatever the time is this.
I noticed they put on the yellow flashing usually first when they come into a stop, and then they put up the stop.
Okay. So on the transportation side, we're looking to fill that vacancy and part-time driver. Our part-time drivers do not get benefits. They're an hourly rate. A full-time driver would be 84,000 salary and benefits. They only including benefits. It's about 44,000 is the actual salary, but because it would still be full-time. Like if I find somebody that walks in the door that wants to work 3 to 7 part-time, we'll definitely take that person because that will save us in overtime. But at this point, we haven't. And we would love, a substitute driver who we could call early in the morning when a driver calls out sick, but that's not happening yet. Other transportation issues, we have worked very diligently to contract with East Hampton for repairs. You remember we were going up island to Patchogue. That would take 2 bus drivers away from lunch and recess duties, sometimes put them on overtime. And the garage is open and we have a cross contract with East Hampton now. Increase in insurance costs, about 17%. You'll see where that goes. That's to insure our buses, to insure our fleet. Unstable fuel costs, we don't know where they're going to be. We do have diesel, gas, and I think we have 1 or 2 propane buses left in the fleet. District contracted with East Hampton to share services with BOCES. In the past, we have used BOCES, which tends to be very expensive. So you signed a contract with East Hampton to share those services, and that has reduced our costs to BOCES. Proposed proposition, we continue to look to replace our 2008 buses. We just discarded one of those that was not worth any repair. We're recommending 2 66-passenger buses for the 24-25 school year, which would be bonded. Right now, the costs are about, 310,000 for 2 buses. Okay, and then we started that about 5 years ago. Thank you.
So you're saying collector buses? We have 4 buses, 2008. That's what 16 years old now, right? And you've got can we get a cost of that episode? What's the lifespan on them left?
Oh, they should have been discarded a long time ago. So what we look at is we look at what the repairs are, and if the repairs are higher than what the value of the bus is, we don't repair it, and that's why we just decommissioned one of them. So we're really down to 3 2008. We just decommissioned one.
Wait, so how many buses do we have altogether right now?
I don't have that number for you, but those are the older buses.
Right, okay.
So really, you were looking and to save money, we don't have the money this year. You're really looking for 5 buses, but we're going to sell them, try to get it to 2.
Correct. We've been doing a couple every year. Last year we did 1, and it was not the 66, it was like, I think the 33, a little bit bigger than the minivan, but smaller than a big bus.
Is there package deals before?
Right now, the difficulty, believe it or not, is getting buses. We still haven't gotten our bus from last year.
Is that they're still looking at? They're still trying. Is the contract Congress? Have they passed that yet? They like buses yet?
No, we were told that that's kind of, there's a big push to push that back.
Push it back.
To push it back.
That's good to hear.
I mean, upstate New York has concerns about freezing weather. The distance, I mean, some of them couldn't even get back after doing their runs to charge up again. There's a lot of agreements that have to be reached with, let's say you're at a sporting event in Huntington, can you charge your bus there? Because you're not gonna make it back here right away. There's just too many things.
There was a proposition of $1 billion being put into the bus transportation from New York State, and we know we're not going to get the funding. So that'd be great. Hear more on that as progresses. It affects us, EMS, and basically everybody.
It does.
But those buses, it's majorly because they're almost, I believe they're almost 3 times the price.
Oh, they are. They're outrageously priced, and then you need the infrastructure, which
Yes.
again, we don't have, and I can just tell you that just the wiring alone, that would be needed out there. You know, without the charging stations and.
But with all that, we have confidence now that the investment that we're making, you know, per these buses, that we're going to be able to keep them for a sufficient period of time, that we're not going to be asked to return them and somehow create an infrastructure for electric in the next 5 years or so, which is.
You don't have to replace, right now, the way the regulation is worded is 2027. If you were to buy a bus, it has to be an electric bus.
But the ones that you purchase.
But the ones you have, right,
Because
you can keep.
It's either be, that's gonna be helpful to see how this progresses, because we have 3 buses that are 2008, there's probably
Right.
3 more buses that are 2009, or 2 buses. You know, what's
I'll get that information for you.
you know, if we just, I know, you know, the buses, well, that's the one thing to look at, is follow that, what they're doing, you know, which that could affect us majorly. Because it might be cheap. I think East Ham Fire Department just spent quite a few $1 million on buying a fire truck, being proactive.
Meaning electric or?
No, they want gas.
They want gas,
Yeah, because it was, you know, too many for that.
I have this information, Pat, I'll make sure the entire board gets it, the number of buses we have, the sizes of them, and the year, and whether they're gas, diesel. We also provided that information to the state, because they were looking for it, yes, yeah, they, several surveys have gotten, come out on that, I know QSCP has been contacted as well from the state to see.
And it might be helpful, because, you know, we understand some of the facts about how much we spend on transportation a year. We've had transportation for the last 12 years, I believe. East Hampton wants their own, and, you know, educate the community why we have our own fleet versus subbing it out to a bus company.
Right
The
now,
savings with savings per year by having our own fleet. Even though it's expensive, we are saving that, you know. I took numbers when we first started doing, we were saving $700,000 that year.
right now, the increase that districts are receiving from their bus companies who have them really over a barrel, because they're not bidding on each other's bus routes. They're saying, okay, that's your school district, you bid 37% increase.
From last year.
Yes, 37%. And they're held captive. They don't have a way around it.
Sounds like a mini monopoly almost. Like
Yes,
unspoken.
You don't want to sit across the table from some of these bus companies and negotiate.
And they base their salary on your, a lot of them base their fees on your budget. It's not on cost, it's on your budget. It's about 5%.
Well, I'm glad we don't have that problem.
Yeah, our bus drivers are worth their weight in gold.
No, yeah.
They really are.
It's important to have it, but they also let the public, and everybody know how we get in that, why we do this. You know, because you hear from parents, let's just sort it out, my child will be picked up on time. At an expense, it will. You know, when the bus driver's out sick, you know, that a bus company has benefit is, yes, they'll find themselves the bus driver pick the child up. They're paying twice the money, it's an expense. I mean, that's part of, you know, for me, it's what the public know why we're doing it. And sometimes it isn't. It is not fair that each child has to wait to go out of class. But in the scheme of things, is also, plus the buses, the money we save for transportation, use that money for education. You know, so it's.
And remember, having your own buses and your own drivers, field trips
Yes.
are not questioned or canceled due to the fact that a bus company makes promises that they can't provide, and then a trip gets canceled. I've seen that over and over again because they don't have enough buses in order to do simple field trips. I mean, we're very fortunate. We can go local, but yet we can go as far as Riverhead to the aquarium using our school buses. I am going to invite Mr. Kevin Jones up to talk about facilities for us.
Good evening.
I'd like to thank the board, administration, and community for giving me this opportunity here. I'd like to talk about some of the stuff that we have currently with the facilities, and some of the projects we've done, and some recommendations moving forward, hopefully, if the budget will allow. Currently, we are roughly around 94,000 square feet worth of occupied space. Some of that is in some storage capacity, but that has to do with the main building and some of the support buildings, and also the grounds. With the capital improvement project basically being completed, we have about 35 acres that are now used and occupied in some capacity, which leaves about 11 acres of still unoccupied kind of forestry. 3 of our playgrounds have been renovated, so they're new. We have 2 courtyards, 2 softball fields, and a brand new baseball field with 2 soccer fields and a large assortment of new gardens, walkways, parking lot spaces that are all requiring some additional maintenance and oversee. The staffing right now we have myself during the daytime with 1 maintenance and custodial man, 1 custodial woman, a split shift maintenance man, and then the night supervisor and 5 nighttime custodians.
Sorry, could you go back to the breakdown of the classrooms?
Sure.
I understand that.
Currently 63 instructional spaces with 39 bathrooms. Some of those are partial. We have 1.5 gymnasiums and some other support rooms. Substitutes is still something that we're looking to increase to have on call, both in maintenance and custodial. And we are soliciting for that as well. Some of the projects that we've completed right now, these are all projects that have been some capacity done in-house. Everything from installing some newer air conditioning equipment that will help us with some of the humidity problems we've had in some of the areas, and upgrading our univents to get off of the pneumatics, which is an older style of low voltage control, as well as piping. The lockdown strobe light situation that we discussed, that was something internally. We did all the wiring and infrastructure side of it with collaboration. Tanner. These are some of the savings associated with those that we've been able to do through in-house. A couple pictures. This is one of those moving cool units. This is one of the lockdown stations. There's currently there's 3 in the building right now. We also did something with the beautification team, which had an idea to incorporate a lot of the country flags from some of our students. So we were able to build custom frames, mount them all throughout to kind of help give a splash of color and beauty throughout the building. There's some of the initial little 6 breakdowns that I gave. That equates to about $55,000 worth of estimated savings that we've been able to do by offsetting this work and doing it through the maintenance department. Currently, to date, we have 42 recorded events that were not typical of what was being done prior, which is giving us an estimated savings of $184,000. Of course, expanding that is our priority, to save as much money as possible, and in turn, you also get more for your dollar, through infrastructure, time associated with it, and some of the more creative projects that we're able to do. And this is just an example of one of the many events that we have. This provides heat for the building as well as fresh air to each individual classroom. Because due to their age, a lot of them are starting to break down, leak on the hydronic side. So we've cut out the piping and repiped it with 24-volt controls, and now updated with a regular household style thermostat. We're offering the teacher more comfort and control. Another project that we did, which we were able to acquire a grant for the archives. The basement right now has 3 rooms that are carrying all of our documents, but it's been a little bit of a mess. And we're renovating the space. There'll be new shelving that'll come in with an outside company that will categorize everything, as well as we're gonna put dedicated dehumidification into each one of these spaces so that they can pretty much remain sealed entities and keep documents for a very long time safe.
Is that a sump pump in there? What is that?
That's actually a ejector pump in the ground that deals with some of the rainwater and stuff that will come in from some outside drains, as well as there's a couple sinks in the basement.
Is that existing, or did you just put that in?
No, that is existing. We just kind of gave it some maintenance and refurbished it a little bit. And it will be recovered so that it's not in the way of any of the shelving and stuff once we build it around the room.
Is that actually pumping out water that gets in that room, or it's a pump for other places where water gets in?
No, that will for other places throughout the basement.
Okay.
So that houses a reservoir that's underneath the slab.
Okay.
It does have some floor drains in the event that the basement were to flood. You have a way to pipe it into an area that we can then eject it up and out of the basement. So it doesn't typically see a lot of usage.
Okay, but we are using this room for storage of, this is gonna be document storage and stuff like that, right, in there, so that's not an issue with having that.
No, it's been this way for a very long time, and it has never posed an issue with the records that were in there. I think there was one time where there was a flooding in the basement, but it wasn't due to this pump. It was just a overflow of a couple of storm drains.
We've been good with some of those heavy rains we've had over the last few months. It's everything's
It's
all
been
up.
excellent. And as far as the basement goes, we've had no issues whatsoever. So one recommendation is in doing a lot of the in-house work and kind of taking on a lot of the interior projects and maintenance of the building. Recommend getting an additional maintenance / groundsman. There are a lot of areas throughout that I'll touch on that are not currently able to be touched by some of the contracted work that we have, as well as we can expand upon that while using an individual to do more exterior maintenance of the building itself, which again will lead to additional costs, savings that we will be able to benefit from in the years to follow. Also, some of the staff that we do have would like to recommend giving them a promotional or an opportunity to increase due to the knowledge and the abilities that they now have acquired. They've been able to take on more and more, and it would be recommended to show them.
Do remember too, civil service, the way they work, is you have to be in these positions for at least a year before you can be upgraded to another position. And then for advancement purposes, you can't advance unless you've been in some of these positions for a year or 2 years. So it's to the district's benefit to think about holding on to those individuals that do qualify to be the next level, and civil service would make that judgment.
So in addition to acquiring another individual, this is 2 different options. One, all of this equipment would be necessary to operate the grounds under our own capacity. Right now, the baseball field equipment that I'm citing, regardless of bringing in another individual, is something I very strongly feel would benefit the district. We currently do not have any equipment to support our outside facilities, and we've kind of been makeshifting some stuff to get through. But now that we do have so many newer, developed pieces, we do need to have the infrastructure to maintain that property.
Is the baseball field maintenance, is that for the line marker? I thought we did.
We currently do operate a painting robot that still requires us out there, but there's also just ground maintenance. So everything from regrading to weed control, which is a big problem for us, to fixing the ruts, the boxes, the pitcher's mound. There takes a lot of different things to just maintain the field, to keep it to its capacity for field play.
Those parts aren't under contract. That's stuff that we have to do.
Currently, nothing on that end is under contract, and in discussing with the current contractor that we do have, they are not outfitted for that type of maintenance. They're more of a ground, your normal fall, spring cleanup, mowing, weed whacking services, some tree trimming, things of that nature. They don't really do the baseball field and stuff.
Do you have pictures of the baseball field?
Yep.
Yes.
They'll be coming in two slides.
Quick question on the equipment. Did you see, maybe you can help answer this too, are any of the reserves that we have able to purchase equipment of this nature, like facilities equipment? I mean, think of like air reserves.
I would have to look into the laws on what you can purchase, or I would say. No, off the top of my head, I don't want to confirm it. Let me confirm it.
Maybe you guys could do just a checklist on the equipment, some of this stuff, if there's a higher probability if you're not moving from the general fund and you're able to pull from the reserve. So if there's any kind of
I'll definitely look into it.
creative research we can do that opens up some funding that might be helpful.
So right now, year one, if we were to move forward on a program like this, we're requiring an individual that would take on that and give the infrastructure of all the equipment outlined. We would see a total expense of about $161,000. Now that would directly offset what we're currently paying for on contracting services, which is about $88,000 a year. So that would put us at year one at about a $73,000 increase to the budget. But again, that individual is not just taking care of those services. We would have a lot of other abilities to utilize, and it's hard to calculate some of those other savings that would follow.
When there's new equipment, especially big outdoor equipment, then you need a place to put that equipment.
Yep.
So what would the plan for that be?
So currently we have a new garage space that was part of the capital improvement project. We would just need to dedicate some time in getting rid of some of the old furniture inventory that's kind of been stored there temporarily. We are using it for some of our outdoor equipment now, but there is plenty of space that would be able to house all of this once we just could kind of dedicate a few days to clearing it all out and getting that renovated for safety. So it wouldn't be much cost at all.
So Kevin, on the garage, I know when it was built, it was intended also as well as to be the place where you would do maintenance stuff. You would do, your paint and all that, because you were doing that basement. Where would that take place?
It would still house both. So right now, one of the pieces of equipment would be a large zero-turn tractor. That would be the largest piece. Then there's the baseball field, kind of like a very small zero-turn piece of equipment. And then you're talking about a traditional style lawnmower and a weed whacker, things of that nature. So all that equipment would be able to house it in there appropriately, while still having enough space to do regular kind of, some saw work, if we're doing carpentry, house some materials, and also perform maintenance on the equipment. We would have enough space to do that.
Another question is, we have 35 acres, right? Is that, that's landscapes?
That's used spaces.
Used the ground, not the building area.
Correct.
And 96.
I'm sorry, no, the building structures are taking over some of that space.
So, we do pay outside agency. They cut once a week, right? I believe that. How many men do they have cutting the lawn?
They come and do it within a few hours, so usually it's three. About three. One starts running the outside stuff, one will go into the courtyards, and one will support with weed whacking services.
How long is it here?
A couple hours.
So 3 hours?
Maybe by the time they unload, 3 hours to be reloaded and off the
So
property.
you would dedicate a week, a day and a half, a week of just rounds.
I would anticipate this would be roughly about 3 days worth of service for one individual. But some aspects of this would be supported by us as the maintenance staff as well. So some of the field maintenance would be a kind of a team effort, which currently we're doing as a team. But a lot of the other ground maintenance would be able to have one individual take care of that while still offering a few days of of incorporating them into the other projects and taking on some of the other projects. One being, performing irrigation in our courtyards, which again is not, which it can be labor intensive and just require a degree of personnel to assist in that. So that's where it would be more of a team effort. But by having an additional person, would be beneficial to us and save over the whole cost of bringing in an outside contractor to do something.
So we're gonna do take, not trying to analyze it, just try to figure it out. So when you look at the classroom size, they said 9 classrooms, 20, 15, 15 offices, and you have, one that's done this staff full time and one half time that's done maintenance and that, like, would you recommend more staff during the day?
No, I think the interior of the building has adequate coverage because that's how we've been operating for now. It's just in maintaining the outside grounds and some of the other areas which are not being maintained. We would have the ability to add that infrastructure to them by new plantings and taking care of it. Actually, right here. So this is some of the reasons to make that change. Being able to control the schedule, that's something that's difficult to do, even though we have a good relationship with the company. Sometimes their schedule doesn't allow to come during an appropriate time. So we have, people on the grounds that are coming and going or operating equipment. Also being able to do some of that detail-oriented service. A lot of times they're only going to be here for a set amount of time and then they set a clock. But if they don't necessarily finish certain sections because of unforeseen issues, that's what you get for the day. So sometimes it's left us with areas that haven't been serviced that, they kind of will hit the next go around, but may leave another area. Which in this case, we'd be able to make sure that all the grounds is maintained to a higher standard. And also by taking on some of the other outdoor stuff, painting the parking lot lines, power washing the building, exterior building stuff. There would be enough time allotted for that individual to do some of that other stuff while kind of focusing on, the groundwork in a full-time capacity. So this is what the field looks like after we've had a company renovate it. The staff and myself, introduced the new field conditioner and also painted it ready for game time. And it's very difficult to maintain this throughout the season without having the equipment. So very soon the grounds start to go in reverse right near the tail end of our season where we're trying to play catch up. Again, this is us doing it ourselves, limited capacity to get this field up and running, necessary field conditioner to make sure that we are starting the season off gorgeous for all the students, and then very soon Mother Nature will take back over. So currently, without having any kind of infrastructure, we're looking at having to do complete field renovations yearly, which is a large cost to us, and not something that we should have to do. We should have to maybe bring in an outdoor company every 5 years to do a heavy renovation style, but a lot of this should be recurring maintenance that we can do in maintaining these fields to look like they did.
I'm trying to understand, can you go back to 3 slides, the fields?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't understand. Go back one more. Okay. Thank you.
And there's 3 of these fields, so that's part of the other thing is maintaining them all adequately takes a lot of time. Where one individual could really, either if it was one day for one person running the equipment just to do some of the ground grading and weed control, we'll make sure that we can keep up on it. Some of the additional expenses to the facilities budget would be getting the current greenhouse. It is operational now. It was, we made some repairs and renovations, but we're not able to operate during the winter months. I know that is something that's been expressed as a desire. So in doing that, we would see an additional fuel expense to be able to operate throughout the winter. Also with the fields the Game Time Pro Field Conditioner, which you saw in the last slide, those bags. That's something that you want to add yearly, and it would slowly taper off, but the first couple seasons, you need to keep it in there, and that's what changes a newly graded field from becoming kind of like that concrete style where the ground just gets so hard. And then additionally, all of our new rooftop equipment has a lot of filters that require, they're bringing fresh air in and exchanging it 24/7. And there's just many filters associated with each piece of equipment. So this would be an additional expense in just having, being able to change the filtration and timing.
Those are recommended extra expenses, you're saying?
Yes, that would be increased. This is some of the current proposed projects. Our rear bus loop here is, it needs to have some work done to it. Between the concrete side of it, the asphalt side of it, and some of the drainage side of it, we could be looking at around $250,000 in a renovation cost. In keeping up with some classrooms in new flooring and abatement. 3 classrooms would be roughly about $50,000. We've discussed some locker replacement in getting the 3rd grade wing up to par, which would be roughly around $38,000 for new units, and as well as one of our science rooms that didn't see part of the renovation has a very small island demo center, which is definitely could use a little update.
I'll take this one, Kevin.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. I wanted to put this up here, just because I know there's lots of questions. We're still waiting on East Hampton. If you remember, the district does qualify for free and reduced lunch. But we don't have a cafeteria, so we do have to contract with other school district. In order for that school district to get free breakfast and lunch from the state, they have to put in an application. So we're waiting on that. But in the meantime, I've asked Kevin to run some numbers for us. The first thing I would recommend to the board is you actually survey our parents to see who would want breakfast and lunch for their children on a daily basis, maybe a couple of times a week. Lunches would be cold lunches. They would be sandwiches. And even what some of my colleagues have found who don't have kitchens in all of their buildings, they found that the cold lunches don't sell as well as the hot lunches do. So I would recommend the board, before investing in anything, survey to see how many lunches we are actually talking about.
Can we actually do like sample lunches?
We have them now.
All right. So
We have them now. We purchase about 10 lunches every day for those children who qualify for a lunch, or to get their lunch, or don't like to eat what's been sent home. We did that when the general store was open.
Is there a variety of sandwiches they give you?
No, they give you the same sandwich for that day. The next day it might be turkey, the next day it might be cheese, next day it might be.
So they don't have like specialty lunch, like some people who don't eat meat are stuck not eating a sandwich.
I'm sure we could tell them that, we have a vegan request, but we haven't so far.
Say we look at 700 lunches, you're gonna have 700.
Probably what they would get is like a yogurt, some celery sticks, some carrots. We were supposed to provide lunch to our pre-K students as part of our grant, because it's a 5-hour program. And what we found is the pre-K students were not eating it. Now the pre-K program really gets only one lunch.
What's the deal with the milk? Keep it on stuff about the milk. Is that milk warm?
That's the other thing. In order to get the free breakfast and lunch, the district has to give up being a milk school. So right now we get reimbursed for our milk. So if nothing else, we would be then asking East Hampton to provide the milk. So if we're only getting 300 lunches and breakfast a day, we would still need 700 and something milks.
Where's the milk cup now?
Where's the company?
Where's the milk cup when it gets delivered?
It's in a refrigerator, but literally it's like a refrigerator you would see in a deli. That you open the door and you take stuff out. It's not a walk-in. We don't have a walk-in. What we're requesting here or looking at is something that can transport lunches. Right now, our bus drivers transport lunches. They come in a box and our security guards take them and they put them in the refrigerator. If we're gonna have that many lunches and breakfast, what East Hampton would provide is breakfast for the next day when you pick up the lunches. So you would have to be able to store this. We're thinking of a refrigerated trailer, and or a, you know, on-site walking cooler. We would need shelving units, additional staff probably, and making sure that you have the electricity to support an electric truck like this. You might have seen some of these trucks at restaurants, you know, when they run out of space, they just use the electric trucks. So something for us to consider, if East Hampton comes back to us and says they are able to do this.
So right now we're at about 10 a day. So one of the things we'd want to find out, I mean, to Barbara's point, it's a nice idea because you want to see what the demand is, and in order to get demand, you need to see what you're actually taste what you're actually eating. Because going from 10 to 300, you really want to see what students are interested in. That's a very different number from what we're sustaining right now. So there's the need side of it, and then there's the want side of it, and then when you actually make that decision, what is the order threshold? Like say, for instance, if you see a demand, all of a sudden it jumps from 10 lunches a day to 300. Is that something that you are committed to for the year? Is that something that changes per week? Like
We would have to work that out with East Hampton. You know, in the pre-K program, we started out with all of them, and then every other day we were calling over to East Hampton to say, reduce it, reduce it, reduce it.
So we're not obligated for a certain number of weeks.
I think if you said to we needed 678 lunches and you only took 300, you're gonna be obligated, I would think, because someone paid for lunches, right?
They're getting reimbursed.
They're getting reimbursed for lunches, but there's also accountability, right? And is East
And we
Hampton,
wouldn't want to waste.
Well, that's my point is, yeah, once you have the survey, you're gonna have assumed demand, you know, based on what, so you're trying to get as close to a real number as you can. Then that number actually has to play out. Students will, you know, eat it, partake in it, and then, you know, so your information right now is that the pre-K was sort of a litmus test for this, and they had full lunches and they went down to one. So now you're going to a bigger scale. So we really want to see, you know, what is the quality of this lunch? Are students going to enjoy it? Then we have to start somewhere, but then what is the, you know, is this a monthly figure, you know, that you're saying we're going to do 300 this month, or is this something that
I would say weekly. I would say
okay.
weekly. You know, in order for them to judge, in order for them to staff up, it's a lot. I mean, they were very good to us during COVID.
they're able to handle 1,500 meals a week?
Yeah.
Would we be able to dive in this equipment to start just in case?
That's a definite possibility, absolutely. It's to see what really works well.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of stores.
And all this infrastructure that have the lunches food down to.
And that's why, to me, it seems like it's worth a small investment upfront to just get lunches for whoever said that they want it, try the lunch, and so you know, if you're spending a small amount of money upfront and not that amount, if people really, you know.
We could definitely try that, Barbara.
With the survey.
Start with survey, yeah.
And then obviously, you know, ultimately it's going to come down to a level of quality, you know. We're giving children just a, you know what I mean? I'm really curious what can be produced at this scale. It would be wonderful if it was food that, you know, people really loved and wanted, and it's a good thing. It's another thing entirely if it's some kind of base minimum and, you know, the majority of terms knows that. It would be great to have, like when we used to have the general store, it was a very different situation. We were very fortunate to have that, and I think that's sort of the memory. And then when you have this mass produced thing, there's the side of it, it's a really nice idea. I would love to be able to have something delicious that the kids could have at scale. But that's to be determined. We really have to figure out where these are coming from. It would be wonderful to have that. I don't know what control we have over that. That's the question I'm asking.
It's not the general store, I can tell you.
That's gonna be a cold lunch.
The general store, we had no lunches left at the end because students were like, Get my lunch.
Maybe a nice snack for you.
Right, but I think that, when you look at the community and parents, that like it's, we do our part to get the highest quality that we can, but there's that memory, and sometimes you think lunch, lunch isn't a lunch, could be a very different experience. So,
A lot
when
of
we're
our children
surveying,
take a thermos.
Yeah.
I've opened more thermoses than sandwiches, just an observation.
but I just see the survey as it's a needed first step, but what actually is gonna come out and be produced from that scale is another thing entirely. We'll have to monitor that as well, and hopefully we can find something good.
In schools that even have cafeterias, they survey these students at the beginning of the week. And those students have to make determinations of what they're gonna eat the rest of the week so that the kitchens prepare enough pizza,
And one kid's in high school, in the cafeteria, and they beg their lunch every day. They just didn't care for cafeteria food.
And that's. We'll do the same thing.
You know, it's like, I'm going to. That's tough, and but we got to, they call it a turkey sandwich on white bread all week, but it's obviously,
those options, I don't know.
and the options, is it possible to get a menu?
Yes, absolutely.
So this is the number looking at,
And maybe post the menu, sorry, maybe post the menu with the survey.
Yes, yes.
Post the menu with the survey. That's something to get menu. And then what happens on Pizza Friday? Do we not take the lunches, or we obligated to take?
No, we did that in the pre-K.
Or will they do it on a big, that was.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
So you do it on a 4-day week if you need it.
Yes,
Not every week. You don't have to take the menu.
no,
but the program's gonna cost us that much, whether we have 700 or 300 or 200, we're gonna have to put in an
Yes.
expense.
I like his idea of looking to rent. And see what works for us.
Actually, to that point though, if it was Pizza Friday, but not everyone eats pizza, could you have that order, if you're doing it weekly, might Friday be like 150 lunches, and another day might be 300, because half of those students would be opting for pizza when it's available.
Yes.
But you might be surprised on 1 and 2, mental, probably close to around the same first year.
This is out of my wheelhouse.
And you also, then you got maintenance of it. What's the maintenance refrigerator? And refrigeration always breaks down. We don't have refrigeration kind of staff those. Send over there.
He would agree with you. That's why I asked him to put this together.
No, we do, yeah.
No, we need all of the information.
All right, next slide is our next budget workshop, March 12th. You will hear from Mr. Kelt on instruction and curriculum and special education. Hoping that the board will give us some direction on what you'd like to see for budget workshop number 4, maybe rolling in either none of the requests, some of the requests, or final.
Well, I think we'll be having a discussion about, what's actually going on with the governor's budget, where do we stand in terms of our state aid, which we know right now has been cut, and that we are in the hole because of the proposed cut in state aid. The Save Harmless bid seems to have gone out the window, so we're in a bit of a pickle.
And we've been lobbying and speaking to our legislators. Assemblyman Peel has been terrific. Senator Colombo, they are a united front, both the Assembly and the Senate, to bring back the hold harmless so that we would anticipate getting the same aid, if not a little bit more. For the public's sake, I've said this before, do not look at the runs in the newspapers, because UPK is not state aid. UPK is a grant, and it's based on the number of students that we're serving.
The point of that, it makes it look like we're receiving more state aid than we are.
Correct.
But over 450,000 of that reported quote unquote state aid is not in fact state aid, it's grant funding that is exclusively used for our pre-K.
Correct. 611 is what's being reported. We're not using 611 because we don't have that many children. But I will tell you, 2 more children are going to Eleanor Whitmore as of Monday. The amendment has just been written for the grant. That's what I'm saying. This money is not there for the taking. I actually have to apply, tell the state I have 2 more children to get my funding.
Yeah, so, I don't have March calendar in front of me, but, the March 12th one, you're doing the, curriculum and instruction, especially what their needs are. At the April 9th, you plan on presenting us the budget, correct?
Correct.
Which only gives us, 12 days to discuss the budget.
This is your month.
No, well, we don't have no numbers on April, March 12th, are you gonna give us the actual budget?
We can give you the actual budget at the next board meeting.
Okay, okay, so that should be part of the workshop, or whatever it is, we need a board presentation. That board meeting, you want to put in a workshop, and the workshop in there for the board presentation with the numbers.
Tell us what you want to see. You can tell us what you want to see on March 12th.
Well, so what we want to see, yeah, but I'm saying we only have a few days, what's the March calendar, when's the holidays?
March, Easter is the end of March, only 2 days, Friday and Monday.
Friday and Monday, yes, I just don't want,
Yeah, no, the long break is in April.
so we want to add that session in, we want to add another session in there.
Well, when are we gonna, when will we know our state aid numbers? When will that be decided?
You may not have state aid numbers until May 1st.
All right, so we would have to go on the assumption probably that we're not getting that money.
Correct.
So,
And I wouldn't want to, I personally wouldn't want to at the next board work session, because I've not heard, two of the most important things of the school is budget, education, instructional curriculum. How can we present the budget before that? It was curriculum instruction, it's gonna cost funds. And we gotta look at all the package, all the little lines and items where we deduct, where we have to add. So that's one thing we should another part of the workshop after we have all the numbers together. Before we, then we'll have April
Before the
9th
9th,
is the regular board work, so we should have, and the 22nd, we'd have to do one between the two of them. Can we do one between the 12th and the 9th of April? He's gonna present the budget to us, we're gonna get to look at the budget, and, and then say, what the public wants to talk about, they have to do that.
you can go with
Just suggest, I'm gonna just.
March 19th might be too soon to throw together all the numbers. The regular board meeting is on the 26th
March.
of March, if you want to see all the numbers.
We can do the regular board meeting, there's nothing, because we still have one more board meeting this month. This is a
Yeah.
workshop, and you're not, and so you wouldn't be ready for the next board meeting.
No, because unless you want I wouldn't want to put the next budget workshop
Before that,
in
no, I
less
want
than
to,
2 weeks. Yeah.
So let's leave that the way it is, we'll put another budget workshop in, or at the board meeting, we can do it.
at the May 26th?
March
March
26th.
26th, when you're presenting numbers in the budget to us,
Present the numbers.
and then we can go over those numbers with as the board and discuss what we can do and can't do.
Okay, we'll try to keep that
That makes sense?
meeting right on any kind of presentations.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Because I don't want to get the budget on the 9th and then have to present it, then go to, you bring the proposition on 22nd. That's pushing, that's
Yeah.
only giving, not giving fair notice to administrations to do any adjustments they have to do.
Yeah, we can get the numbers down at the board meeting. And then all of the letters have been sent and received to the governor, advocating as much as we can. And obviously we have what's proposed right now, but we're trying to fight to get back that $100,000-ish that is no longer available to us.
We have a lot of people working on this, including PTA, including school boards, administrators, organizations. Others have gone out. I was at the advocacy workshop on Saturday. They are all assuring us that, it's going to be restored. That's what they're assuring us. But it's just that, there's supposed to be a budget in place for April 1st. She was late last year, and they're not telling us to expect a budget before May 1st.
That's important to know. You will be able to produce numbers to us, but we won't actually have the real state aid numbers until possibly May. So it's a real crunch that I don't know if everyone always realizes that happens. You're doing planning without actually knowing what your funds are. It's a precarious situation when setting a budget.
And for us, even though it looks like a small number, my colleagues, for Springs, $200,000 or $300,000 is a lot. And other districts are looking at millions.
Did we get the percentages on the TRA, the health insurance and all those increases yet?
Not exact, right? Your ranges?
The ERS.
Well, the health insurance is the increase in that, we have the exact number on that.
That was a 15% health
So that
insurance.
was rough, I was just waiting to one somewhere else.
Health insurance is a fiscal, so it goes up in January.
Okay, so you have those numbers.
And it's actually, yes, you have to estimate the second half. Yes.
You have to estimate the second half.
because of the budget. So we usually will estimate what we historical analysis, we do a best estimate for 6 months of the budget.
And then the other percentages that we might not have known, before.
Yeah, the insurance, that's gonna be outside health, it's gonna be car, auto liability, that's around 15 to 17%. This was our master focus last week. That's their, how we should project to be 15 to 17%. Nothing is.
So you just found that out too.
So that's, we obviously budget that in mind.
Is any unforeseen increases that we don't know the exact, of insurances and all the other stuff?
We're meeting with BOCES to go over all our BOCES services. Our cut in aid would have been 28%. It's 12% right now. But we've increased our use of BOCES,
Right.
so our BOCES aid goes up. When you look at the BOCES run, please remember the foundation aid is the only new money. All the other aids are reimbursed from what you spent the prior year.
Okay.
Okay, so we're meeting with BOCES to see if there's anything that we've missed, to see what their increases are, because that's a big part of this budget as well.
Yes. Yeah.
And that meeting's not till March, it was rescheduled.
So it'll be between March 12th and March
We
26th.
should have it by now.
That's helpful.
But if we don't have the state aid, and we're talking about 100,000 some odd dollars or so, we know that we're short in our, now that we're a district in financial stress or whatever it was. If we just plan on not getting it, and if we do get it, does that end up being, something that could potentially go to our fund balance to improve our financial situation?
Yes, you'll have some options if that's the case.
So maybe knowing that number doesn't matter so much to us, we just plan on it not being there, and we go ahead with our plans and then.
I would agree with that, because they're gonna push this to the final hour. This is big, this is.
And our fund balance isn't at a threshold for that.
Right, when I was seeing the 4%.
No, you're not gonna hit.
Yeah,
We're not close.
we're not close to exceeding.
0.28.
Right. All right. So we do have 2 items on our agenda this evening, but first we will have some public commentary for our budget presentation. If somebody has a question or a comment, you can please either come to the podium or call in on LTV. Please bear in mind, we do have generally about a 3-minute time limit, but anyway, this is time for your budget questions.
And there's a sign-in sheet there, Ben, just so we can gather who's.
Okay.
Okay.
LTV, do we have anyone?
We have no callers at this time.
So.
Sorry about that. So I apologize. I missed the first part of the meeting. You mentioned something about.
Chris, why don't you introduce yourself?
Oh, sure. Sorry about that. My name is Chris Tinky. I've been here for like 20 years.
Yes.
Anyway, you said something about financial distress, and that's kind of it.
Right.
What's the immediate outlook? Let's say implication. What kind of deficit are we?
Well, no, this is it's financial stress, actually, not distress.
Oh, okay.
So it's a rating given to us by the state.
I'm sorry, the state will do this, every school district in the state, and they have guidelines on how they, what range for certain criteria. And this year, we were designated as susceptible to stress for this year.
There's environmental reasons having to do with certain populations and turnover, but then
They're not specifically related to our.
to finance, there's a finance portion, so it was because we have our unappropriated fund balance has less money in it than they would like to see.
Oh, yeah.
So it should have a minimum of like 1%, it's actually at 0.28%.
1%.
Yes,
That would be like $300,000.
right, yes, so we were below that. So,
And, well, that's, and you said that's, unappropriated fund balance?
yes.
And then is there another account? Is there another restrict, like,
I mean, there's other restricted,
accounts?
funds, yes.
And there's reserves.
And reserve, yes, reserves, yes.
That can or can't be used for,
Those cannot be used for things other than what they're created for,
okay.
right?
Each reserve is
So all of this
categorized.
basically amounts to potential cuts.
No,
Well, no, they're just saying that, they're saying we don't have enough in the rainy day fund to easily use. If there should be a significant expense, and it's something that could possibly affect, say, our bond rating. So this is, we just need to be mindful of the fact that our unassigned fund balance should be a little bit more,
The savings should be healthier.
yes. But in terms of the overall picture, it's, maybe not having the state aid, maybe other things, we're in for a tough budget season.
Right, right. And the state aid that you're referring to, I'm sorry, you're throwing some numbers around, is it 100,000 or 300,000 that you wouldn't have?
I think we'd be losing about 100 some odd.
About two.
About two.
That's 201, I believe, from the year that we are at the ELS, based on the first.
This is all preliminary with respect to the budget for next year? Or is it not actually based on a projected budget that we have in place?
Well, we know what we've been spending this past year, right? And so we have been trying to build from scratch again. So the governor's budget is not set, and we are currently developing ours. So
You anticipate the same thing that we've had for a long time, which is to look at every number and make every.
Absolutely.
All that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Right.
But under a time where there's greater inflation than we've probably ever experienced across health insurance and, we last budget workshop, there was 92.8% of our budget is spoken for with contingent expenses, non-contingent expenses.
Right.
92% is spoken for, that's subject to inflation?
Yeah, they're mandatory expenses. So about almost 93% of our budget is, everything they're just fixed costs, debt, the tuition to the school, things that keep our school moving. So there's not, I guess we can say there's not a lot of.
So you're only working
fat
on
to trim.
8% of the budget that you could actually reduce, is what you're saying?
Yeah, of course, we don't want to reduce, any of it.
So,
I mean, it goes all, this stuff goes obviously back years and years and years, decision upon decision upon decision. I mean, it's hard to project, obviously, the circumstance that you're in right now. But, this is where you're at, right? So, we have to deal with the current circumstances.
Thank you, Chris.
it's on the website, the last presentation.
Jenny, to bring up the other person.
Again, appreciate the district. Oh, again, 20 years.
Yes.
I do have a question. I understand that this news about our financial stress just came last week. But it seems like the Springs is always working on a pretty thin budget. And, with the retirement of such a superintendent, why didn't we explore the possibility of hiring a part-time superintendent instead of a full-time superintendent at almost $250,000? I mean, that seems like a lot of money.
It does. I think we've been over this subject enough time in meetings that there is just too much work to be done. Despite the size of our school, there's a lot that our superintendent does on a daily basis. It's, we have 700 kids in the school.
Well, 1,100.
It always comes back as the highest paid administrators, like the superintendent gets $250,000. Meanwhile, the teaching assistants, the bus drivers, the custodians, get pretty much no raises. The raises are not substantial. So, it's kind of like a disparity. Also, through the years, the board and the district has asked the community to come forward to support the budget, to approve it, and we have done that. I think it's time, to think a little bit out of the box as far as like how you guys distribute, these expenses regarding salaries and all that. It's not fair to have a $300,000 for lieutenant and not to give a raise to the teaching assistants and the bus drivers who already deserve it.
You have another question?
Yes, I do. I'm sorry, I was a little late with the launch part of that, the launch part presentation. But my daughter goes to the high school, and in the high school, they're giving lunches and free breakfast for everyone. And I was just thinking, why can we contact the high school and sign an agreement for them to provide us with hot lunches? Is that what we're going to do?
Well, we were just discussing.
But with whole lunches, right?
Yeah, we won't have others, we don't want those people.
And why can we do hot lunches? They can probably pack them.
Because
Plus, it's on, I don't think we have facilities.
No,
At the proper temperature, but back, you gotta keep eating food at the proper temperature.
Yeah, you need a kitchen.
You need a heating kitchen, you need a heating box
You
truck.
need servers.
The transportation of the food and the hours it sits out. We pick up at 10 o'clock and child eats lunch at 12, it's 2 hours.
And again, not you guys' fault, but when they were designing this building many years ago, all the parents, we were talking about it. Let's have a cafeteria, let's have a warm-up kitchen.
But that's one of the items that got cut
Yeah.
because we can't afford to do it, we could not afford to build it, we can't afford to staff it.
I
And
mean-
it's an unfortunate story here.
And yeah, it is, I guess. And we'll continue to be unfortunate and we really don't look at those numbers.
Thank you, Dr. Would anybody else here or anybody calling in from LTV have another budget question?
Yeah, we have a caller on the line. I'll put them through.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, they just disappeared.
Okay. All right, well.
Mr. Taylor.
Another table.
They're back again.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead and put them through?
Hi, this is Shelby Sinelli. Patrick, so you were asking about what spring school being in financial stress meant. So just to give you an idea, we're one of 16 schools in New York State that's in this situation, and 5 are on Long Island. So just to give you a little idea, last year there were 14, so 2 more were added this year. I love the idea of bringing in-house, maintenance equipment, but where are we going to keep all the equipment that they plan on using to do everything that the outside companies currently use?
Right, so that was a question that I asked Kevin, and we actually do have a garage space that is new and it is currently occupied with some old furniture, and he indicated that if we get rid of the stuff that is really superfluous at this point, there's room for equipment storage along with the maintenance crew to be able to use that for any projects that they need to work on.
Okay. All right, thanks.
You're welcome, thank you.
Hello, I'm Eric Green. Say hi to everybody. Some of you know, some of you don't. It's about the hiring of the grounds person. We have done our own grounds work in the past, and it has not worked that well. We recently just got rid of all of our grounds equipment prior to the renovation and the addition. We had a very good relationship prior with the town where the Parks and Recreation would come in, they would prep our fields. They did our hardball fields, the softball fields. And I don't know why we still don't have that relationship with them where it would take up the extra slack on preparing our fields. We worked hard to finally get the contractor we have, who has been doing a fantastic job. I don't know if there's any complaints from the board members or from the administration or coaches or parents. I haven't heard of anybody. But before we buy equipment, we have such a hard time finding our employees as it is. How are we going to find a grounds person that we're going to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars eventually? Because one person's going to turn into 2, 2's going to turn into 3. They've got vacation, sick time, and then it's just going to escalate from there. So we're going to create a department that we really don't need as taxpayers, because our landscaping company does, in my opinion, an adequate job. And if they can't do, there's things that they're missing that needs to be addressed and needs to be added to their contract, and they need to pick it up. Have you ever seen the fall cleanup or the spring cleanup here? It's not 3 people. it's 8 to 10 people, it's very labor intensive, and it takes them days to do it. So before we invest in doing anything with a person, it also become a contractual issue. Are they going on a custodial contract? Are they going on their own contract? Has that been thought out? I mean, I don't know if anybody's addressed that. But I'd just like to bring that to everybody's attention that I think it's a bad idea because the company is paid for their reliability. They're sick, they get COVID, they get RSV, they're gonna send people here to do the work. So if we have a person that comes in here, if they run into any issues, they run into housing issues, they run into any kind of issue, our grounds are gonna fall behind. And unfortunately with the company, that doesn't happen because they will find replacements. And that's what I think about was that whole proposal. And thank you very much for your time. And
Thank you.
good night. Maybe we can reestablish and talk to the park and recreations and see if they can help us to come to some kind of arrangement with the school district because it's worked out well in the past.
Yeah,
Thank you.
employees.
Okay, anybody else there, LTV?
No, we have no other
Okay.
callers.
Okay, in that case, we are going to move along from our budget workshop into a presentation that we have on DASA, which is the Dignity for All Students Act.
Thank you, Barbara. I just want to introduce Mr. Clark again. And the Dignity for All Act became effective July 1st, 2012. This district has always had a policy committee. It's worked very closely with Marian Skowski from Ingram and Smith on our policies. Our procedures have always been in place. Each year, the board looks at the code of conduct and is required to put it out in a 30-day public comment period. And many times you receive no comment on that. In fact, this year we introduced restorative practices and spent a great deal of time introducing that at the reorganization meeting. And our code of conduct was approved by the Board of Education. So with that being said, as a frame, I will pass it over to Mr. Goff.
Thank you, Mrs. Spencer. So this presentation is going to provide some clarity on the processes that we use to keep our students safe as it pertains to bullying, harassment, and discrimination, all which fall under the Dignity for All Students Act, which commonly is referred to as DASA. And with that, DASA itself, which is also aligned very closely with our code of conduct, no student shall be subjected to harassment, discrimination, or bullying by employees or students. We're going to get into what that really means, starting here with the DASA Act here. So it prohibits bullying, harassment, discrimination, or cyberbullying, which was added a year after in 2013 against students in school based on the following. So race, color, weight, national origin, ethnic group, religion, religious practice, disability, sexual orientation, gender, sex, and any other form of discrimination. So that is where the Dignity for All Students Act lies. In terms of the school's responsibility with DASA, is to provide students, staff, and persons in parental relation with information about DASA, including the identity of the DASA coordinator. All of this has been done on our website, has been on our website. Also to develop policies, procedures, and guidelines to support the school, a school that is free from harassment, bullying, discrimination, or cyberbullying, which we just discussed about. I'm going to talk about definitions of policies and stuff in our next slide. First, this is all coming from DASA. What do we need to do? We need to identify an administrative designee as a DASA coordinator who shall receive all reports. As it states on our website and in our policy, that will be our assistant principal, Ms. Rogers is that. And so also we have to provide a pathway for students and parents to make a report. There's a report if it comes to Ms. Rogers that she will help fill out. There's also the report online. There's also an anonymous box that we have for students who can report anything if they don't want to have their name brought into it or they're afraid of any retaliation, even though that is a part of something that is unacceptable at the school. But we have that box for students. We also require school personnel to notify the DASA coordinator of a report within 1 business day. and then the DASA coordinator, the assistant principal, will complete a thorough investigation. So we take prompt action. Ms. Rogers, if she gets a report, she'll call in students, she'll call in witnesses, she'll do interviews, and ultimately make a determination. That's where the prompt action to stop bullying, harassment, and discrimination. And in the next couple slides, we'll really get into what those 3 words mean. We prohibit retaliation against anyone making a report. We require the school leader to report trends to the superintendent. Require school leaders to notify law enforcement when behavior is believed to be criminal, and also ensure policies and resources are posted on the district website, which they are. They're under the DASA tab under students. So this is what bullying is. Bullying is unwanted, aggressive behavior among school-aged children that involves a real or perceived power imbalance. So the behavior is repeated or has the potential to be repeated. So in layman's terms, according to the United States government and the State Department of Ed, it's virtually, there's that imbalance of power, but it's consistent and persistent with the intent to harm. So that's bullying. We're going to jump into harassment. And so with harassment, and we touched on the different forms of where that harassment can come into, so race, gender, etc. But it creates a hostile environment, and that's a key portion of this. And so that hostile environment is severe enough that it becomes intimidating, offensive, or abusive. And if we look at it, it has to substantially interfere with a student's educational performance, their opportunities, or could potentially cause fear or safety of physical harm. And then we get into our next one under DASA, which would be discrimination, is the act of denying rights, benefits, justice, equitable treatment, or access to facilities available to all others, to an individual or group of people because of the group, class, category, or that person belongs into.
So I have a question about where DASA falls in terms of your regular everyday bullying. Because is DASA just for people who are of a certain class or status that are receiving discrimination based on that, or is it for,
If any, so bullying and harassment fall under the same thing in DASA, and that's why it's important to take a look at that. So there is bullying and harassment, and there's also unwanted, inappropriate behavior that doesn't fall under that.
So DASA will actually cover everything. It's not just discrimination against a protected class, but also Bobby keeps, pushing Billy, and they're in the hallway repeatedly even when he's asked not to.
Yeah, if it falls under any of those, and then we would have an investigation if it's just a one-time thing.
Right.
There's also an investigation, but it might not have to go all the way through the DASA reporting and everything else. There's behavior that doesn't fall under the DASA category.
So there is. Okay. So I think, that a good clarification of that would be what kind of behavior doesn't fall under DASA and as you're going through.
Yeah, and that would be anything that's not bullying, harassment, or discrimination. And so there's the material incident that's after the investigation. So the material incident under DASA is a single or series of verified incidents by a student or employee where the act may create a risk of substantial disruption in school. So we're saying like, hey, this is one of these things. It is bullying, it's harassment. So this includes conduct that is severe or pervasive in nature that has one or more of the following effects. So it interferes with a student's educational performance. It affects the student's mental, emotional, or physical well-being. It causes emotional harm that unreasonably and substantially interferes with the student's education, and causes or could reasonably expect to cause harm in the future as well. And so here's a recap of the components. We'll go into some more as well. So the policy, which we have the Dignity Act coordinator, we have instruction for students, we have the school employee training, school employee reporting, annual reporting, all that on our website as well if anyone would like to read more about it. We also have this code of conduct where all students have the right to learn in a safe and secure environment. Expectations, it outlines the expectations regarding school conduct. It outlines the restorative practices that we put into place. It also has the levels of offenses and infractions along that. So it'll explain the different offenses that could take place. It has the procedures for investigating that, and the infractions or the consequences based upon whatever the inappropriate behavior was. So what we here do proactively is first we look into our school vision, which we want to develop this inclusive environment. So we want to work collaboratively with students, with teachers, with the community to make sure Spring School is the very best. And then we want to empower students to make great choices. And in doing so, we soar with the osprey. And so our values are, as we've already mentioned, are all throughout the school. You see service, optimism, accountability, respect. You see flags representing every country that our students do as well. So we just want to be this one building, one community, and this beacon of hope and light here in Springs that stems from the school. And we do this all together, not just administrators, but teachers, faculty, staff, students, and the community as a whole. We have social and emotional learning that occurs in each classroom throughout the year. The program is called Second Step. It's research-based. It's a tier 1 social and emotional learning program. The main bullet points with this is strengthen students' social and emotional skills. It helps them manage their emotions, helps setting and working towards goals, building friendships, having empathy for others, solving conflicts with peers. That's all part of the program that's continuous and ongoing throughout the year. We also have programs. We have the Spirit Meet program, which is headed by our character ed coordinator. We have a junior high pep rally, which also brings in our values and good habits and working collaboratively and making great choices. Our diversity club, one of our many wonderful clubs, they have taken on such thing as Kindness Day, where we build chains throughout the building. All classes participated in that. Again, building one community of care and love. And then we have PS I Love You Day, which is coming up. Again, Diversity Club is going to be a part of that. Also focus on building collaboration and a community of love and respect for all. So there's a lot of things we do on the front end as well. And then there's the following the processes and procedures of DASA that has been in place since 2012.
What is the PS I Love You Day? I don't get to know that.
It's this Friday.
It's this Friday. It's basically a program that is based actually started on Long Island, and it's a program where people want to come together, where students and community members and everything. It's basically, we show that we're united and we're one building that cares for each other. And we just want to make sure we're sending the message, just like many schools do throughout Long Island, that we're all in this together. No one's better than another person. We're all in the same boat. We want the best for each other and we'll support each other through that process.
So the objectives of DASA are clearly admirable, and the fact that the school is fostering inclusivity, trying to make sure everybody's on the same team, that's all great. But we all know that when push comes to shove, there's going to be bullying going on in school, because we know that there is bullying going on out in the big world between adults, right? So it's something that happens with this power balance. So what are the best ways for a parent to be, or even the kids, to be dealing with incidents like this that come up that are going against what we're trying to instill there? How is the school handling that, and how does our recent foray into restorative justice play out if there might be an incident between students?
So first is communication, and we're clear and consistent on that. We have the two between the pep rally and between Spirit Meet, which happens every Monday as well, with messages to parents and to the community. With sharing of the code of conduct is there. We have Ms. Rogers, our assistant principal, who really handles discipline and handles all DASA reporting. So it's not just she's going to get this big document that someone fills out from DASA. If anyone comes to her with a complaint or comes to a teacher or myself, we would direct it to Mrs. Rogers and she would investigate it, whether it's little or giant. And so we want to make sure all kids are safe, all kids feel welcomed and cared for. And that's how we do it. So we take everything seriously. We get a report, we look into it, and then we follow our code of conduct. And we have consequences within our code of conduct, and they grow upon each other. And we can punish forever, but punishment doesn't really work unless there's learning involved in it, and that's where the restorative practices come in. You made this mistake, and now let's do something. We'll attach it to a consequence based on our code of conduct, but when you come back, if you're suspended or if you meet after school, wherever it is, we work together to say, this is the mistake you made. What was the impact it had on students? What was the impact it had on school and our community? And what can we do to make things better and different? And the kids are actually, that's when we empower them, where they take on the responsibilities and they then do things to make the community better.
So if there's an incident between two students, does restorative justice ever include like a mediation of some kind or apologies or?
That typically always takes place. So there's always, whether we want to label it restorative practices or what, whenever we talk about it and there's an investigation, it's always, how does this make someone feel? And we get into that feelings, and no one wants to intentionally hurt somebody or make somebody feel bad. Once you start putting that on the student, they realize that, and they'll typically take ownership and apologize on the spot.
What part of there was a little incident, there's not no incident, that's unbelievable. Do the parents get involved in this?
In terms of what, well,
So,
there's an
I brought it in, just.
So if you walk in the hall and you push him, and then someone brings that to Mrs. Rogers' attention, or if it's something minor in the classroom, the teacher's going to call, but if it gets brought to an administrator, if it gets brought down to Ms. Rogers, she's going to contact both parents, the person who did something wrong and the person who it happened to, and let them know, and then also discuss, this is your child's role in it, and this is how we're working towards making it better.
That's what it is. Okay, man, that's phone call.
What's the quantity of bullying complaints of the administration?
Not a lot, a handful. I wouldn't know off the top of my head. I'd have to go back into the records, but it's more of the day-to-day typical. This one, tripped me, and this person didn't get tripped every single day of their life, but in that moment they made a poor choice, and then that gets handled. But when it comes to a consistent, persistent, with the intent to harm type thing, and that's a reporting, there is not astronomical. We could get to those numbers.
I'm just curious, what's the time frame for sort of like complaint to investigation to resolution?
So, and it just depends on the event. Each one is different. And also when we hear it, that's the most important thing that we tell parents, when we tell students, when they report it. If something happened, we're just finding out about this like a month later, it's much more difficult for us to investigate, take a look, interview people. But if it is happening right now in the moment, Steve did something to me and I go directly to Ms. Rogers, or go to my teacher and they report it to Ms. Rogers, she's going to be starting that immediately, calling students to her office, witnesses, anyone, and getting statements and listening to what's happening.
Since cyberbullying, that's what I'm always scared about that. Since it started in 2012, it's not, have we seen an increase in or a decrease in?
In cyberbullying?
Yeah.
I would imagine that we probably, a lot of times parents would typically handle that on their own. Maybe it doesn't get brought to school, but we're seeing probably more cyberbullying than you would have in the past. Obviously, more kids have access to social media, and that's the big ticket right there. So it's not someone sitting down and sending an email. It's I was playing this game with so and so, or we were in a group chat, and this, that, and the other thing occurred. One thing led to another, and some inappropriate things were said. So it comes down to the access and also the age. Younger and younger kids are having access to these social media platforms, have phones in their hands, and thus it's a direct relation.
And what's the responsibility of the school if the cyberbullying is happening at the school? Does that make it schools purview, or does it, if it happens at home?
It could happen at home. If it has the potential to be brought into school and students feel unsafe, then we have to address it just like anything else.
Well, social media accounts, you're not supposed to have one until you have to be at least 13, right? Which is, what grade are we talking? What grade is 13?
That's right. Almost, yeah.
Right. So, if this is happening, are parents generally aware that their kids have social media accounts?
Typically.
Okay.
There's a lot of things, there's a lot of accounts out there.
And it's not necessarily social media, it's.
More texting or something
Yeah.
as opposed to, right, okay.
Yeah, probably cell phone's probably the hardest one, right? That's probably the biggest one.
If an incident happens in school, is your recommendation, if it's something that's in a classroom, that the parent talks to the teacher first?
It depends, it all depends, the teacher is the front row contact of everything, and with great classroom management, we don't necessarily have many of these issues, but if something happens, depending on what it is, the teacher can handle it in 2 seconds, and it'd be over, students apologize, and we move on. If it's something major that needs to be brought to Ms. Rogers with discipline, then it's going to be handled immediately, but just on an administration.
Right. Some of those things, I suppose classroom incidents are easier to track at speed because you can directly contact the teacher if something happens outside of that more controlled environment, whether it's outside or on a bus or something else. I suppose the first point of contact would be Ms. Rogers and to do it that way.
Yeah, typically the main point of contact with parents is who they're most comfortable with, and that'll be their child's teacher, and that's okay because it's reported to the child's teacher that my child's getting bullied. They're going to tell Ms. Rogers, and she's going to start the investigation.
So it's a good note though too, it's not necessarily directly any one person, but that individual who you're most comfortable with can begin that chain of command and handle that situation.
It's anyone.
Yeah.
So for children, so I mean, usually we tell parents that the chain of command at school is you talk to your child's teacher first before you work up your way up before you bring this into the school board or for the superintendent, speak to their teacher, and then maybe you speak to the assistant principal or principal after that, you're not getting a resolution there. So in terms of, someone's child comes home and says, somebody did something to me on the bus, how would you suggest the parent handle that? Do they reach out? Should they talk to the teacher the next day? Or
I would talk, and our teachers are wonderful, and it's from small to big. Luckily for us, we don't have many big things. When incidents occur, our teachers do a great job. They hear it, they listen, and they'll either handle it immediately on their own if it's an in-class issue that can be dealt with. If not, then they'll send it to Ms. Rogers and she'll be on it.
So I mean, if a parent says, Bobby got hit on the school bus today, should that person call Ms. Rogers directly or you, or usually go through the teacher first?
Teacher would make the most sense, and it would be the easiest, and then the teacher reports it to Ms. Rogers, and then we'll investigate. But ultimately, it can go to anyone.
Sure.
That's what.
Instead of it to the most comfortable person, which could be the hall monitor, which sometimes.
Well, that's a child, a kid in the school might feel comfortable talking to a hall monitor or whatever. If you're a parent getting this information, you're not gonna, parents.
We had a portion of our faculty meeting just last week was to reiterate those things. Not that our teachers didn't know and our staff didn't know, but we wanted to just make it clear. We did it in a fun and engaging way, the different aspects of DASA and their role in it. So to be a teacher, you have to have your DASA training. You have to have that certification to even be a teacher. So they've gone through hours and hours of training, and yearly trainings, and this is just an additional reminder as well.
How does the school deal with bullying situations where there's multiple kids involved? Because sometimes there's situations arise where one or a number of children are alienating other children, making them feel unwelcome or unsafe. How does that get?
It takes time. It takes time, and it starts with getting statements, listening to students, listening to witnesses, talking to students again, talking to witnesses again, getting the information all compiled all together, and then Ms. Rogers ultimately will make a decision on what action based upon our code of conduct. But all parties involved.
And if necessary, you call students together, if it's a grade level, or if it's junior high versus elementary school, you bring them together and the principal calls them out, and says, this is what's been reported and I need your cooperation in improving the way you behave. The 8th grade particularly, it's reviewed with them on what they could lose. That 8th grade trip, graduation, those are serious consequences, and the students think twice about their actions because there's a lot at stake for them. So but that has to be reminded, and that's what pep rallies are for. That's what spirit meet is for, to send those messages in sometimes an engaging, fun way. It doesn't always have to be, the principal speaking. It could be a character ed program that's brought in from the outside that has a nice way of engaging students in what to do and what not to do.
And the second step, social and emotional learning, is that done more at the pep rallies or in individual classrooms? Classrooms.
And there is a parent component as well that parents can do at home with their children.
And how do parents get that information, or how is that information disseminated?
Teacher can get that to the parents as well.
Okay.
So maybe is that something that we could actually, inform the whole, group of parents about, that if somebody's looking for extra information about how to handle certain situations. I know that, we try to, this information for not just building resilience in kids, is it kind of building resilience in parents in a way, or what is the parent component sort of?
It's really for parents to talk to kids about, using the same language that we use in school, in safe ways, listening, eyes on me when, when you talk to, sometimes when you talk to kids, they're not looking at you, but making eye contact. The program, they're quick. They're 10, 15-minute videos, some questions, some things to think about.
But what resources do we have for students who feel like they've been subjected to bullying, and they want to build their resilience and have a better idea of how to respond and how to, be able to handle it going forward? What do we?
Well, we do have the social emotional program in every classroom, but also we have a wonderful force of counselors and social workers and staff on that front end that talk to kids and work with students all the time.
And is that where is a kid ever asking for that help, or is that more like a teacher or somebody's recommending that they
both?
And parents.
Does John Paul want to say anything? Does Bob want to say anything?
Thank you.
All right.
Let's stop the handle.
Okay, thank you. So we will have another round of public commentary for this. Again, you could call into LTV or come to the podium. Please say your name. You'll have, roughly 3 minutes if you have a question regarding to the processes and procedures that we have gone over here. Please note that this is not an area for discussion for anybody's individual situation. We cannot discuss anything regarding students here in public. But if you have a question about how, more specifics on something or what some resources might be, this would be a time to ask that.
I'm Nicole O'Brien. I have 2 students here in spring school. So originally I wanted to discuss my children's experiences. I can't do that.
That's really not appropriate here. This is being broadcast on LTV, number 1, and number 2. It's not something that we can discuss in public anyway.
Okay.
But,
so I do have a few questions then. I know that teachers have to be mandated in the DASA training. What about bus drivers, monitors, other people in the school district?
Yes, they all receive the district training. They don't have a license that requires them to have DASA training like teachers do. Teachers can't be certified until they go through a 6-hour training. We provide all of our staff, including custodians, maintenance, on superintendent's conference day.
So my question is also, if they're a DASA trainer and they're all in this school, everybody should be a mandated reporter, correct? Everybody is a mandated reporter. Anyone associated in a school, on a school bus, school grounds, is a mandated reporter.
I We don't use mandated reporter as it refers to DASA. We use mandated reporter as it relates to child abuse.
So bullying is not a form of child abuse at all?
No,
It's not physical aggression towards another, which would be considered abuse?
I think you're mixing the terms.
Okay.
Okay.
If you could clarify, that would be great.
Mandated reporter refers to child abuse in an educational setting. So if a teacher, a bus driver, somebody abused a child or was suspected of being abused a child, and someone saw that or heard about it, they would be required to report it.
But also as a mandated reporter, if they're in charge of children and they see abuse going on in the bus, whatever you think or whatever it's qualified to be, they still have to report it.
Correct. Bus drivers have incident reports, and if there's an incident on their bus, they have to fill out the incident report and give it to the assistant principal.
My issue with that is it's not happening. They're not reporting these incidences on the bus, in school. And I know I'm the reason that DASA workshop is here tonight. And I'm okay with that because something needs to be done. And these people who are mandated reporters and who are in charge of the safety and the comfort of our children to provide a safe learning environment, social emotional environment, any type of environment, it's just not being done. These people are not doing their jobs and these children are suffering socially, emotionally, physically. If I could speak of my experiences, it would probably be very moving and eye-opening for people. It's very sad what my children and my family have been going through these past couple of months, and it's relentless because the consequences are not fitting the actions, and the policy, the DASA, the infractions, the codes, they all contradict each other. And I'm having a really hard time as a parent with children in this school figuring out where to go so we could progress and actually get these children the help. These second step programs, whatever you have going on, are great, but it just seems like there needs to be a little bit more. And children in general, and children with disabilities, they're not apt to go to somebody and say, hey, this is happening, because then they're going to be looked as, oh, you know, he's a tattletale, he's a troublemaker. I know a lot of situations as well are overlooked. For one person, you know, a smack, oh, that's typical bullying, whatever. But to that child needs to be validated. These things are happening to that child, and they might be at another level of maturity or have a disability or not, or family situation where they're not being told, okay, I'm gonna take care of this, let's go do this. And sometimes it's uncomfortable for the child to go face to face with someone else who has physically harmed them or verbally abused them. And this just doesn't make sense. And I believe that what's happening, I mean, there was no reporting for 4 incidents for my son on a school bus, 4. And I know that's illegal. And I know it's $10,000 a fine per not mandated reporter, which those bus drivers are. My daughter was out of school for social emotional distress because of bullying going on. And it happens at times, you know, teachers turn their heads, yeah, it happens. These are kids and these things happen. But when it gets to this level that my kid can't come to school because she emotionally can't handle it, something's got to be done. Other things have to be done.
So I appreciate your sharing there. I'm sorry, you know, please don't go into any more detail. And I can hear how frustrated you are, and I'm very sympathetic to that. I mean, this is, you know, as I mentioned during the presentation, you know, incidents like this do go on, no matter our best intentions here in school. They go on in schools, they go on out in the real world. And the question is, you know, how do we encourage all those kids to be resilient and have faith in themselves? And then what is the best way to equip them to get the help that they need? So you can bring up some good points, and you know, we can have a further discussion about this. But thank you for mentioning that.
Thank you.
Again. Nicole, thank you so much for bringing that to our attention. You actually, I saw you post in Facebook. I'm a parent of a sixth grader, I don't want to say anything else, but I can certainly tell you there is a lot of bullying in the playground during recess. Boys will never come to you or a teacher or an adult because they don't want to be singled out and they don't want to be called names in the playground. But it's going on and it's not pretty. And I understand that we have all these regulations, these beautiful presentations, but when you are at home and your child comes home and tells you what he or she went through, this really doesn't do anything, honestly. When you take the self-esteem of a youngster and mash it into the floor and don't do anything, that needs consequences. It's not nice, it's not right. And I mean, I understand you're dealing with a large population, and it's impossible to have eyes on everybody, but maybe there's gotta be some other procedures that you guys have to put in place, because there is a lot of stuff going on.
Gotcha, you have 4 kids.
I know.
And I have 4 kids, and I've been where you are, and I've been on both sides, And the schools do probably with the best they can, and they're following what they can. But also, as parents, we have to educate our kids at home that you don't bully. You don't pick on the kids.
I educate my children, and I told my son.
I know you do, I know you do, and as we can do, and the school can do as long as they want, and I'm not, granted, this is reality. The schools, kids get 8 hours a day, it's home 16. There as parents have to take responsibility for their children. So if your child is being bullied, hey, let me educate not to bully. And as a community, we got, we should be out outside of world teaching as well as coming here. In a school that did bullying, the Bob said, bullying all the time. There's gonna be bullying in the workforce. There's gonna be bullying everywhere you go.
I'm sorry, I know about bullying.
And parents work hard and they have a lot of time. I have 4 kids, I'm lucky, I've never been called for bullying for my kids. I'm lucky. Why? Because I think I did the right thing. I spent my, I educate my kids the best I can, and also rely on my school to do that, my education they get,
I do too, but.
Yeah, but in the school we do so much, and I think that, I don't know, they're doing their procedures, there's board witnesses to do policy. They're trying to, I think they're doing what they
I
can.
get it, I get it.
So maybe we should go to the outside.
I understand. I'm not putting on the burden of my children problems in the situation with other students, but the reality is that there are a lot of stuff going on in the playground during recess, during the bus ride. Maybe we ought to have a panel between parents, teachers, and administration to figure it out. But something has to be done. And you're right. I have talked to my children. In fact, one of my children takes jiu-jitsu, so he can defend himself.
Not defending himself, it's okay. It does.
Oh, sorry. My name is Stephen O'Brien, Nicole's spouse. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak. I won't get into our personal situation at your request, but I want to just point out a few things. DASA is dignity for all students, not some students, not brown students, not white students, all students. A lot of the incidences aren't happening in classrooms. Like they said, it's the bus, it's playground. We need to increase supervision if possible. I know staffing is a big problem with the school, but it's something that maybe we need to repurpose some of our staff. You folks are here to do policy. I get that. What's happening, and not necessarily with the people in this room, but whoever it was that my wife, my son, my daughter have dealt with, they were not following through. Policy is great. Put it up on the board, show it to everybody, but if there's no action behind the policy, then that's just BS, right? All of the DASA information should be available on the website. I have a question for you, sir. The bus cameras, how long do they save data for?
So there's usually about a 60-day retention on that. So after runs out of space, it will delete the last day in its database on it. But depending on how often that bus is used, or depending will result in how long.
I would encourage you to watch my son's bus, to see it as an exercise. When you say, Pat, that bullying should be controlled at home. Not all parents are as responsible, or socially ethical like you may be. Some parents don't care, or some parents aren't being notified, which should be happening from the school, that your kid is smacking a third grader, an eighth grader is smacking a third grader. That falls on the school, not on the parents. Parents are part of it, 100%, but we need help from the school to get us with their resources, the counselors, the cameras, their repercussions. I'm all for sitting two kids down and saying, we gotta work this out. Sometimes we need to physically pull a grade. I know my daughter's grade, which is 5th grade, the girls are horrible bullies, and it happens in different groups. But for my son's scenario, you can't sit down a 3rd grader and an 8th grader. It doesn't work, right? You can talk to the 8th grader, you can talk to the 3rd grader, but if the incidences continue and progressively get worse, something more serious needs to be done as far as repercussions. Whether it's suspension from the school bus, which would certainly get that parent's attention. When they can't let the kid go to class and have to drive them to and from, then maybe we'll see some action.
Just to point out, repercussions may happen for other students that you might not know about, because you don't get to find out what's happening to other parents' kids, and that's part of the thing. You may or may not be aware of how the perpetrator is being dealt with, because they have as much privacy as your child does.
I understand that, but there needs to be some kind of communication that action has been taken. And as much as we want to say privacy, our school, while we talk about how big it is not that big. 700 students, my graduating class was larger than that, right? So there's no real privacy, because if your son is smacking my son and he's not on the bus next week, I, as a parent, know something was done, right?
Well, you know, but you don't, if it's not removal from the bus, you don't know what's been done. There's nothing else could have happened.
No, but we're a small enough community where we'll at least know something was done. We should maybe be allowed to see the number of DASA reports that are filed. No specific information, but it would be a healthy way to look at the school, to see how the social aspect of it is working. That would be a helpful tool for us as parents. Also, if Ms. Rogers is out sick, who's the backup?
That would be me.
That would be you. So then it falls on you to step in. And has that been happening? Okay. I would like to see more communication as a parent, as a taxpayer. I would like to see more action being done, perhaps on grade levels, perhaps on pulling in the 5th grade, the 6th grade, wherever they see a problem. The school has limited resources, and I respect that. But we need to allocate those resources to what's best for our kids. One of our codes of conduct, one of our goals is creating responsible citizens. I wrote down the exact words: provide a safe environment, responsible members of the community.
Are you saying that you've read our code of conduct?
Yes.
Yes, someone's read our code of conduct. We review that every year. I feel like nobody actually
You'd be
reads it.
surprised. Well, there's another thing. You put it out. Ms. Winters came out and said that you put it out open for comment, no one comments. We don't have a problem with the code of conduct. There's nothing to comment about. It's the enforcement of the code of conduct that we're here tonight to say we feel is not. And we appreciate you folks looking into it as policymakers, and you folks on the day-to-day on the ground, helping our kids learn how to work together, learn how to work it out. And my final comment, I think it's only type 1 next year.
Yeah, it was great. He addressed it.
100%.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Oh, I need to sign this.
Can I ask you just a quick question on what you said you did a refresher with teachers that are working a workshop recently? Did that include lunch or recess monitors.
That was teachers at that point.
Bus drivers, maybe that would be something we could,
Instruction.
yeah, we could add.
Chris?
I don't introduce myself again.
No, you don't have to sign in again.
That's okay.
All right, I'm gonna try and consolidate this as quickly as possible. Like Pat said, we have 4 kids. Every single one of them had something or other that you could consider a form of harassment or bullying. Some very serious and, some stuff that led to therapy, and some stuff down to basically nothing, very little. And the issue is that every child has a different level of self-esteem and ability to protect themselves in an environment like that. Everybody has a different support system in terms of their friends and who will back them up in the event of a situation like that. And, the severity of the bullying has to be kind of laid out in a way where, obviously, if it has the potential to do serious harm, it has to go right to the top of the list and has to be dealt with immediately. The kind of stuff that they're talking about, immediately, like the next day, and any kind of physical harm or serious emotional abuse should be handled really, really swiftly and sternly. The issue with kids, obviously, is that they really don't want to come forth about this stuff because they know what happens. It's like a loop. You get classified as the person who bullies or the person who's being bullied. You come across as either a tattletale or you don't want to bring more attention on yourself for being isolated in that way already. And it's a difficult position to put a kid in. And it's hard to resolve conflict between 2 children effectively in a short span of time if they want it to be resolved at all. My brother had an incident not a month ago on the bus. His son got physically abused by another kid pretty badly. And my brother approached the parent and the kid together, spoke to them. He really understood where the kids was at and was able to kind of hash things out. But obviously the school or the bus driver should have, in that instance, have been involved and been aware of what was going on. And the bus driver was probably really busy driving the bus, so that's what makes it hard. I mean, I've been harassed on the school bus, probably a lot of you people have at some point in time in your life.
Yes.
And nobody knows what the hell's going on. So, and they get off the bus like it never happened maybe, and maybe it just continues to happen because nobody knows what to do about it. The one commonality with all of this is that there's other students around to see all this stuff happen. And, it might be time to take polls or surveys, and even anonymously, to figure out what the pulse of the situation really is on the playground, in the school bus, as soon as they leave your house to as soon as they come home. And this stuff happens not just there, of course, it happens on the computer, it happens when they interact in town. It could happen anywhere, right? Anywhere that they could engage each other. But like they said, it seems a little bit arbitrary, the approach to dealing with it, because you've got a couple of really huge hurdles. One is that the kid says something about it, or the kids that are being here say something about it. 2 is that the person that's dealing with it understands the severity of it and either reports it or tries to handle it themselves. So it's not it's not a very cut and dry situation, obviously.
No,
like I said, every kid is different and it affects them very differently, and it could be really bad for a child that doesn't have the support of the school, of their friends, of their parents, and to be able to get them out of a tight situation that could affect them for a very, very long time after that. So we probably should consider using other students to help bolster the students that are being bullied. Try to gather some support from students to say, listen, not only should you report, be aware of, but if you sense that something doesn't seem right, that the power dynamic is off, and that somebody's being harassed, you, not as the person being bullied, but as the person witnessing all this, should come forward on behalf of those people, even in general terms. Say there's something going on the playground at 1 o'clock or on the bus 5 or whatever it is, right? And then you guys can step up the surveillance, and try to address it that way before it becomes, overblown, right?
Thank you, Chris. Is there anybody else who would like to approach the podium or LTV? Do we have anybody calling in?
Yeah, we have one caller on the line.
Oh, you can go ahead and put them through.
Hi.
Hi, who's calling? Who is this?
I'm Ava Lavelle. I'm a graduate of Spring School. I'm 17 years old. Your presentation sounds great, but you never follow through with any of it, especially in my situation. You don't realize the damage that is being done to kids when you don't handle these situations properly. I've been in years of therapy. I've been diagnosed with severe depression, anxiety, and panic disorder, as well as PTSD. From my multiple bullying incidents, and worst of all, my sexual assault when I was 10 years old at Spring School. You have to do better for the families and for the children, for their childhood you ripped away. Thank you.
And Barbara, we have another caller on the line as well.
Okay. You can go ahead and put them through.
And for the children, for their childhood you ripped away.
Whoa.
Barbara, we have another caller on the line.
I think we're all set. Okay. Thanks.
And for the children, for their childhood you ripped away.
LTV, I think we're finished with that call. I think that is.
Yeah, that was the second caller. I don't know what that was. I muted them.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. A lot to unpack from our conversation this evening. It's always going to be tough having people who are just learning how to be people, learn how to interact with each other. And we as parents, as we watch our kids going out into the world and into these situations and how we deal with it, I know that I've been on the receiving end of bullying. I know I've, watched my kids having to deal with things. And it's like we always want to brings out the mama bear and everyone when we see that going on. But the question is, what's really the best way to get our kids the relief that they need and develop the skills that they need going forward so that they can be more resilient as they progress through their school years. So I know we have a very good administration here who we are very confident in, that are a very caring group of people. And we will certainly follow up on the conversations that we've had this evening.
May I please add one more thing?
One more thing, please.
Yes, of course. What you were just saying is, teach the kids how to deal with these things. The kids are so different that, for example, I know of situations where a kid has gone to a teacher, say at recess, so-and-so is doing this to me, so-and-so is kicking me, so-and-so is throwing a ball at me, whatever. Just go talk to them. Or, so-and-so says, well, you need to go over there and just stop and just do this. Whatever the situation is, maybe that child really doesn't know how to deal with it.
But yes.
We really need to teach them how.
Right.
But these teachers need to be affectionate and empathetic towards what that child's going through, not go deal with it, but they don't know how. That's why they're coming to you, and they're coming to you for support, for someone to care for them when they're not at home being cared for. And it's so important to just embrace it. And they're not, and that's what I'm trying to say too. They're not being heard.
One of the things there was sort of a mirror of like a see something, say something that I was getting tonight as well. And I know Mr. Cal, one of the things that you offered was this anonymous reporting box. My question is what type of use is that getting? Are you seeing that? Are students aware of that, especially those that might witness bullying, that aren't being bullied themselves, and know that they can advocate for another student and use that mechanism to report it, and then obviously be followed up on it?
They're aware. We've told students on multiple platforms for a certain number of grades where some issues are occurring more than others. I went into every classroom and had these conversations already. And we do have some things that end up there and some things, we got one that said, I love my dog. And then we have other ones that are serious. And they're handled swiftly and effectively.
So it's being used, and it's something that
Our kids, for the most part, they know that and they have relationships with their teachers, and their teachers built that, and they trust them. And most of the time, they go to the teachers, but we just want to add another avenue to support and to help. If you don't want to be known about it, look into this. This is going on. I don't want anyone to know I'm telling you.
right.
And of course, a child doesn't have to speak to their current teacher. They could speak to a previous teacher that they've had a relationship with if they wanted to.
It sounds like a lot of the bullying is occurring maybe at recess time. Is there another option for students that they can kind of opt out of being thrown into?
Not
Even
across
if it was
the
like an
board.
organized club of kids, is there some way to sort of create a sense of friendship and community?
We've sort of looked into that. There are student groups that our counselors pull, but also we get into the staffing issue again. So
Yeah, but I wonder if there's some sort of program you could implement that was a student run.
An art club. Art club.
Art club?
Yes, an art club during lunch.
It could even just be a circle of kids on the playground that, this is where the book reading club meets, and it doesn't have to really be necessarily monitored. It's just an idea.
We talked about using the library for another.
I think what I'm hearing too is the parents who will work with the asset, but they want more. So, because like anything else, you want to try and come back and what more can we do to make the changes? Not the status quo, what more can we add? And that's what we're asking for. And I'm asking you, the administration team, to come up with more ideas how we can solve these issues. And not even solve the issues,
Well,
to solve these issues.
Well, I wonder if we
Right.
on that as well as make some recommendations.
And more administration on that and parents,
A lot of schools do peer mediation too, where you actually get kids to work with each other and other kids, and kids are trained, the older kids are trained to be peer mediators. I know you had mentioned a little about having, getting the students involved, and sometimes kids can talk better to other kids. And if you have older kids trained and they're talking to younger kids, sometimes that can be, for some kids, like anything, things are effective for, as you mentioned, different kids need different things. And things are, something may work for one group of kids and something else is going to have to work differently for another group. But the most important thing is child, when they tell their parent, that the parent communicates to us so that we know that it's going on. And then we can look and even work with the parent, letting us know what are the best things that that work with your child that we can maybe implement in the school. And it has to be a partnership with parents. We can't do everything by ourselves here. We have to work together, and it has to be with the kids who are being bullied and with the kids who are doing the bullying. But I think that parent communication is the most important thing, and then looking and having different avenues for different types of kids that we can try.
I like your suggestion of kids working with other kids, and might that be an opportunity for community service for like 8th graders and 10th graders, where they could maybe talk to if there's issues going on with 3rd or 4th grade or something, that could be a
We still have buddy program. We still have that.
yeah.
We still have the buddy program. But it's to take the elementary, the junior high kids. They were with
the special ed.
No.
All kids?
Oh,
Yeah.
There's certain grades that go into younger grades and read to them.
Not just read to them, but you had a certain person, you had
You were assigned, like my son last year, well, he's graduating.
Okay.
But I'm saying as soon as probably 2 years ago, he always remembered his, some people might remember more specifically, but you say you're a 2nd grader, you might have a buddy that's in middle school, and you follow them formally through your scholastic career, that you have someone who has been there that you can share your experiences with, that looks out for you. And then I remember my son specifically because he really loved then transforming into the mentorship role as he got older, because I think it was such a good tool, but it was not there was a much more formal system. It wasn't something just like reading, it was really something where the buddies would come in and visit the class. It was somebody that you had, they were like with you through time. And it might be something that we look at. I know we've had administrative changes here and, some new traditions were brought in and some might, some of these things are harder to communicate. Obviously, they're just things that are more granular. But after hearing the things tonight, if that's not something that we're continuing, at least in my experience as a parent, it was a successful system and might just serve as one more support for what we're talking about tonight. Maybe there's some teachers here over the years that can shed a little bit more specific light on that. I'm being more anecdotal, but I just remember it being a valuable tool.
Barbara, we have 3 callers on the line. And
okay, yes. All right, well, we'll take those 3 and then we're going to wrap it up after that. If these are people who are calling in with questions or concerns about the process and not about specific individual situations.
okay, and we do have the caller that was on before when we had the technical difficulty.
That sounded like the same call before. I think we're okay.
Yeah, I think there's 3 people, and I think what they might have had their YouTube stream on, so we're getting a feedback loop of the previous caller. So
gotcha.
I'm going to put them through right now.
Okay. That sounded like the same call before. I think we're okay.
Yeah, I think there's 3 people, and I think what they might have.
Okay, there's more feedback there.
Okay, that caller jumped off. I'm going to try another caller.
Hi, this is Monique Sullivan.
Hi, Monique.
Can you guys hear me? Hi, how are you?
Yes, we can.
I just wanted to, I think it's helpful to also shed some light as like a teacher perspective too. I do have a unique perspective in that I'm lucky enough to be both a teacher and a parent in the school. I do just want to say I think it's hard to hear some of the parents come up and speak in absolutes and say that these things are never happening or that teachers are shooing away children when they're coming to them with issues. I've never seen any one of my colleagues do any of that. And in fact, the day can get a little tricky when you pick up kids from recess and maybe an issue arises. If that issue is a large enough issue to stop the teaching for that moment, I know I certainly do that. I know that my colleagues certainly do that, because learning can't take place if kids do not feel safe and they don't feel like somebody is hearing them. And oftentimes you'll see myself or other people in the hallway having those conversations that need to take place right then and there. And so maybe math doesn't happen right when it needs to start because there's a bigger issue that needs to be dealt with. And we immediately get administrators involved and parents are contacted. I've been contacted myself while, it's well after school hours, and that's when the teacher was able to get a hold of me, and I appreciate those phone calls. So I do think it's important to acknowledge that those things are happening, and yes, every system can get a little bit better, and we can always improve upon things, and there's always such a, every situation is going to be so different. I do just want to make sure that when people are getting up and speaking in absolutes, you're talking about a situation that you actually were not even present for. So to say or to assume that something took place that way is not, I don't think we should be getting up at board meetings and making assumptions like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. Appreciate your input. We know we have very dedicated teachers here who take our children's well-being very seriously. I can also see how a very frustrated parent who's not getting the answers that they're looking for.
Getting up at board meetings and making assumptions like that.
Hold on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. Appreciate your input. We know we have very dedicated teachers here who take our children's well-being very seriously. I can also see how a very frustrated parent who's not getting the answers that they're looking for.
Getting up at board meetings and making assumptions like that. Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate your input. We know we are very dedicated teachers here. Stop that.
All right, I don't know why we're getting the feedback on the phone line. But we still have this caller trying to get through.
All right, last one, and we're wrapping it up.
All right, caller, you're unmuted, ending in 4562.
Hello?
Hello, caller, ending in 4562. Hello? You're on, caller.
I don't think there's anyone there.
Nope, they're still here.
Hello?
Hello, caller. We got you. We can
Hello?
hear you.
You're on, caller.
Okay,
Hi.
great. This is Ashley Della Pola.
Ashley,
and I
you,
teach second
excuse
grade.
me, Ashley.
And I just wanted to, yes, can you hear me? Hello?
You need to turn down. You need to turn down anything you have externally, like your computer, playing the YouTube.
Ashley Della Pola.
Ashley,
And I teach second grade.
Ashley,
And I just wanted to, yes, can you hear me? Hello?
just turn down. You need to turn down anything you have externally.
Okay, am I good now?
Turn down your YouTube stream.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Okay, I think I'm just going to turn down my meeting, and I think that'll work. Okay, so I just wanted to speak on that with this administration this year. Every time I have had a child come to me, I have received full support, and I have also received full support from our school psychologist and social emotional team. I've also seen other times where educational intervention initiatives have been put into practice because we cannot predict when or how situations will occur. We can only educate after, and I have seen that. And I just wanted to say that this year, I have received support every single time, and I have also seen kids who have reported things to me be addressed because I can tell it was addressed because when they enter my room, they're only 8 years old. I can see when they're upset from something that happened in the morning, and they're not anymore. So I would just like to say that every time that something has been reported to me, it has been handled, and it has been handled well. And I just wanted to say that.
Very much. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, we have one more, Barbara. This is the third one.
Oh, okay. I think maybe we need to announce that people need to turn down whatever volume before they
That's what it was.
get put through.
Okay, caller, you're on. Please turn down the volume on your YouTube stream.
Hi. So I just wanted to say that, I've been at the school a lot, and unfortunately I was at the school where there were kids who were stealing from the PTA Penguin Patch. And what could have been a great learning opportunity, unfortunately, the kids did get, reprimanded and action was taken, but I feel like there was a lack of communication to the other kids to let them know what's right and wrong. And I know that it's very important for parents to also let them know, but sometimes parents don't see what we see at school and don't teach the kids how we would want them to be taught. So as, working in public service as a public educator, I think that it's also the teachers, like the school administration's job to let them know that there's consequences for actions that, especially in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
All right, who's call? Who was this, please?
Well, if I say my name, then everyone's going to know who the person is that got the kids in trouble. And then my kids will then get picked on and bullied like they're talking about. And I'll come to you and I'll email you who I am. I think Mr. Pelt knows who I am, so does Jessica Rogers.
Right, okay, all right.
So I
Normally
feel like
we
it's
ask
a
any,
big disservice to the kids to not let them know that there are consequences, but there should also be rewards, you know, for sticking up for the bullies. And I don't think that the school is doing enough on either end of that, you know. So to let the kids know what's going to happen for their actions either way, you know, because when the kids did get suspended for stealing from the Penguin Patch, the other kids that did hear about it came back and were making a joke about it and stealing the next day from it, saying that they weren't going to get caught.
okay, well, I thank you for,
it's a big disservice to not use it as a teaching point for the kids to say, hey, if you do this, this will happen. Because I feel like regardless of your situation, regardless of the home that you come from, if you're going to steal from the school, it should be, you know, one step rule, one consequence.
right, thank you very much for calling in, we appreciate it. LTV, I think we're all set there.
Yes, the phone lines are clear. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you everybody for participating this evening. At this time, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Second? All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. Thanks, LTV.
So they weren't able to open up any arteries, and they put him in a bed and told him to get up and go to the